Planning Commission, 7 p.m. Thursday, August 20th, 2015. So we'll call the meeting to order and ask for the secretary to take the roll, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So we now we'll move on to someone want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Any second for that? Or
I'll second.
any discussion on the agenda? Okay. Everybody who is in favor of approving today's agenda, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of items of protocol I want to make sure you understand is that when you stand to talk, please use the microphone, and there's a button on the base that turns a red light on so we can hear you, and we're making a broadcast record of this proceeding. Also, each person generally will have 3 minutes to make their comments, so try to be succinct. And it is optional to say your name and your address. You may do so, but it's optional. Okay, so are there any public comments on items that are not on the agenda? This is your chance for pure democracy. Okay, I do not hear any public comments on non-agenda items. So we'll move on to the consent items, and the consent items are those that we have one tonight that the staff felt was all could be just approved without a discussion. So the first one and only one on the consent list is 2 Fawn Ridge Road, application number 22-23. Is anybody out there here making an appearance for 2 Fawn Ridge Road? Okay, it appears that 2 Fawn Ridge Road then can be consented.
I'll just point out that you did receive a second letter of support late after your packet was prepared, and I put a copy of it in front of you.
Is that the letter dated August 16th, to whom it may concern, about the Brennan's plans to improve? Yes.
And the address is 4. They live at 4 Fawn. Then yes, that's
right. Okay. What I might say about this letter, it's a great letter, and we appreciate it. If at the top of it, whoever writes it could put the address that it concerns, it might make things go a lot smoother. Appreciate that. Thank you. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
you may want to just query the audience and fellow commissioners as to whether there's any other item on the regular agenda that could go to consent at this point. I'm not sure there is, but you might want to just ask.
Well, that would, I actually, Jim, I have a consensus up here that nobody really wants to do that.
Okay, excellent. So be it.
We will consider that. I'd like to talk to the town council about the process. It's a little bit like a summary judgment where we're not hearing anything.
And also the caveat is someone may be watching at home and they want to come down here at a certain time. They may not be here now. So be it.
Possibly, but I will ask the question, if you could tell me if anybody is not interested in items 2 through 15 on tonight's agenda. Anybody here who is not here for, who is not interested in testifying regarding any of those properties?
Convoluted way to ask it, I think.
Well,
I think you should go ahead as scheduled. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think we should.
Therein lies the issue, I think. So moving on to the public hearing items.
Actually, before we move on, I don't know if we need to pull this. This is actually the one that had the R missing in the resolution. And there might be another typo. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what we discussed before is you can just, if there are corrections or clarifications, you can just bring them to our attention. We don't necessarily have to pull it off the agenda. So as you run through them.
That's fine. One question I had about timeline. I'm not sure I saw anything about a schedule for construction. This is a pretty big project, and I don't know if we need to pull it to talk about that, or if maybe I missed it.
Which project are you talking?
This is the one that on the consent, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's on the consent.
You know, the only time limits the town really has is if you're doing a lot of excavation, we don't allow you to excavate in the winter. This project is not going to have an excessive amount of excavation, so the town doesn't have any ordinances right now that require people to finish a project in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
If that's a concern, you know, or if a neighbor had showed up to speak to it, you might want to take it off and talk about that, but it seems like everyone's in
Okay.
support of it.
I think more than anything, it's for the protection of the applicant, the resident, because of all the activity in the construction industry right now. We're seeing a lot of applicants being left behind. You know, the projects get started, then they move on, and they don't wrap up, and it's more than
Right.
anything for the protection of the applicant, that maybe somewhere in their contract with their contractor, they should stipulate a time frame.
Through the chair, to piggyback on that, what is the time period once the building permit is issued? Is that an 18-month permit or 6 months?
The permits are good for 160 days, but if you keep getting inspections, there's no time limit during which you have to finish
As
your
long as you
project. You just have
continue
to
to get
keep it
inspections.
current. Right. You're supposed to make progress.
That's reasonable.
But we can certainly revisit the issue on a policy standpoint later.
Can I ask a quick question? Did staff have a chance to talk with the applicant about the deed restriction recommendation?
I did not, but I sent the staff report to them. Did the owners understand what the deed restriction is? Rich? You know, because of the location of the laundry room in the garage, I required a deed restriction. Do they understand what that is and don't have a problem with it? So they were told, and yeah.
Would you just summarize for us, please, what that deed restriction is, so we're all on the same page?
Yeah, whenever you have a laundry room and a bathroom on a different level than the kitchen, and there's a way to lock a door or put a door in, there's the potential for an additional unit to be created because laundry rooms have all the plumbing and electrical for a little kitchenette. So this has the laundry room. Granted, it's in what is going to be used as a garage on a different level than the kitchen. And so we included a condition that there be a deed restriction. And the deed restriction just states that the house be used as a single-family home and not contain 2 kitchens. And it also can be lifted. So if the owner ever went through a process to apply for a second unit, it's not our deed restriction's not permanent. We can revoke it and lift it off of the property title, so.
Okay, thank you. And then, you know, somewhat on a side, I'd like to add that this would be a good property for the commission to go back as a case study when we're reviewing the second unit ordinance, this and a couple of others that are before us this evening. Just
Well, let me add to that, because we were talking about it a bit, is on second units, what we want to do is see if we can consider a way of making it a little easier or less expensive to go for that second unit, possibly. That's what we're considering. Oh, question from the audience, yes. Oh, please push the button on the microphone.
Sorry.
I live next door to number 2 Fawn Ridge. I wrote a letter of support. And I can guarantee you that they don't have any interest in building a second unit in their house. They also have a house in San Francisco. So this is their second home, and that is not of interest to them. And I and my husband are in support, as is our neighbor across the street, Helen Marley, and her husband, Robert Mordison. So I really don't think that that should be a concern of this panel.
Okay, thank you for your comment. It has remained, however, a consent item, And so it is now consented.
Well, you need to
We
hold the
will,
vote.
we will make a motion. Anybody interested in making a motion to approve the consent items?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we are finished discussing,
And, Mr. Chair,
yes,
there is a 10-day appeal period
right.
with a
There's
$500
10-day appeal
fee.
period with a $500 fee to the town clerk.
Right, and also, just to reiterate for the public that's here, with regards to the consent item 2 Fawn Ridge Road, it was just approved, okay? So if you're here for that, it's approved. Congratulations, unless it's appealed. Thank you.
Okay, and we're closing the public hearing time on the consent items. Moving on to public hearing items.
Public comments on non-agenda items.
We did that.
The first one is 69 Spruce Road, number 2 on the agenda, application number 15-09, requesting for a preferential parking permit.
Yeah, so this is an application for a preferential parking permit, which is to construct a parking space parallel to the public road within the public right-of-way. And the item was originally heard by the commission on April 16th. And at that meeting, a neighbor expressed some concerns. She requested a continuance to have additional time to have her engineer review the plans. She cited the proximity of the wall to the side of her house and property line. She was concerned that the depth of the excavation for the wall might compromise the stability or cause future settlement of her house. And she was concerned about the impacts of the wall on existing trees. The commission granted the neighbor's request, continuing the project until May. At that time, the applicant actually agreed to a mutual continuance with the town for 2 months. She extended the review for 90 days, as is allowed by the Permit Streamlining Act. And that time is now up, so you do have to take action tonight. The applicant has provided a geotechnical report that looked at the neighbor's house and the plans and the proximity and went into the field and feels that with certain recommendations and construction techniques, there should be no negative impacts on 71 Spruce. The applicant also provided an arborist report that indicated that there's no trees that should be significantly impacted by the construction. So at this point, the commission has 3 options going forward. You can conditionally approve the project subject to the applicant paying for and obtaining the town engineer's approval of the project design, taking into account the neighbor's concerns. If you're still not satisfied that everything's been addressed, the town engineer is very conservative and he could review everything. Or you could deny the project, or you could approve the project subject to the original conditions of approval. So our original recommendation for approval has not changed. And that would conclude our report. Oh, there is one correction that one of the commissioners brought to my attention. I guess in our resolution for approval, at one point we indicate that we would like the neighbor to pay for an arborist report and for the removal of any trees with the project proponent. And then in another place we say the applicant should just be responsible. And I believe that we should change that so it's just the applicant, because at this point I don't have any reason to believe that any of the trees close to 71 Spruce are going to have to be removed. So.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, so any questions of staff?
I'll wait until we hear the presentation. I'll wait. I have a couple of questions on the project, but I'll wait until we get the full, well, that was the full staff report, right? But, pull it forward? Okay. I just wanted some clarification, Linda. We talked about the trees when we were out there yesterday morning. The
Right.
trees at the base of the stairs, are those right on the edge of the roadway coming out.
Yeah, and we were
But then
gonna,
the ones further up are the ones that the arborists said are stable and will not be damaged.
right, so there are 3 trees right adjacent to the stairs, and I was going to ask the applicant or the applicant's engineer. I think that at least 2 of those will have to come out probably to pour the new foundation for the stairs. Are all 3 coming out? They're all bays.
That is correct. There are 3 bay trees that will have to come out. Are not mature trees, averaging somewhere in the range of 6 to 8, 9 inches in diameter.
I had a question about the reason for the continuance was to allow the neighbor at 71 Spruce Road for additional time to obtain her own engineer and review the plans. Did you ever receive that neighbor's engineering report?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not sure in terms of the process when I asked this question, but this is really a question for the applicant and or the applicant's neighbor as to whether the reports that we now have in hand from the arborist saying that no other tree should be damaged, and from the geotechnical engineer saying that there doesn't look like there's a problem there, and both of those engineers saying, or both of those professionals saying that they would come back and review during the process of the construction. My question is whether that has changed anything with regard to the agreement of the neighbor to go forward with this.
Yeah, you should probably ask that again when the public hearing is open. You can ask if the neighbor's here. Yeah, I'm not sure that.
Okay, any other questions of staff? So we'll open the meeting to the applicant.
Yeah, sure.
Now is your chance to tell us about the project.
Yes, good evening, first of all, and thank you for giving me the chance to present the project. In addition to what has been told here before, we recently received the reports from the geotech, the confirmation of the report from a separate professional, and the arborist report, which were the main concerns of the owner of the adjacent property. And the 2 reports, I notice you have copies. I have additional copies here if needed, are clearly depicting the situation there in the field, mentioning that they don't see a major problem in building this project. I know we are in the initial phase. This is not the final document. Will be reviewed and by the engineer, most likely, town engineer, and if any additional conditions of approval will be put in place, we'll address them, of course. The only other concern from the neighbor, from what I see on the letter received earlier, is the treatment of the wall and relation between the concrete wall, proposed concrete wall, and the fence above. These are items that we still have to address in the design, if needed. Other than that, I'm the one that did the design for the retaining wall, for the foundations of the retaining wall, and as a design professional, I'm confident that it's a sound design and will hold in place.
What firm are you with?
I'm with VIA Engineering. My name is Vlad Yoshika. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. And I'm the engineer. I'm representing the company that prepared the plans, structural plans for the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not an engineer, but I am relying on Mr. Furby's letter that we received today regarding the stability of the plans that you're proposing, and I don't know that, I think the neighbor has received these, right, Linda? The neighbor has received this assessment, but I was most impressed by the assessment that, I'm sorry, I lost them. The planned excavations can be made with conventional backhoe equipment. With near vertical shoring, and excavations made in accordance with these guidelines will pose no threat to the existing residents at 71 Spruce Road, since that structure's front foundation has been underpinned and buttressed during the previous construction in '04. That means the adjacent neighbor in 71 has a real fortress there, a concrete fortress that should not be impacted at all by the work that you're proposing. That's my understanding, and so I am comfortable with that.
That is correct. That's my understanding of the letter received from Mr. Furby as well.
Okay, well, I didn't have any questions for you. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Well, we'll... Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll close the applicant's testimony, although you may be needed again, so please don't leave.
Sure.
I'll open the meeting to public comment on this project. So please stand and use the microphone if you have any comments on this project. Thank you.
I am the next door neighbor of 71 Spruce Road. If you have not seen the construction, 71 Spruce Road hangs right over the street. It's really close to the street. My residence is about 30, 40 feet beyond that. The owner of 69 Spruce Road, who wishes to build this large parking area for herself, her home sits clear back of the lot of approximately 125-foot lot close to Frustuck. Her home will not be endangered by this excavation. I would like to ask all of you, how would you feel if your house was here, right off the road, and someone wants to excavate and build this fortress of a parking lot? If your house was right next to this huge excavation. That's all I have to say. I'm not an engineer. I'm just concerned. Have you seen the area in question, any of you on the board?
If I may, I was there just the other day with our planner.
So you do know
Linda
what I'm
Neal.
saying.
I know exactly what you're saying. In fact, it appears that your neighbor is attempting to do something very similar to the parking that you also provided in front of your home on the right-of-way. And so because of the narrowness of the road and the height of your house, there's no way you could drive up to your house, and so you had to create that space in front.
There's no driving up to the house?
That's what I'm saying. There's no driving up to the house.
Street parking.
The parking space has to be right where it is, and you were allowed to do that. Many other homes have done the same type of process to create a parking space, and so it's a very legitimate way to provide parking, and we have very sound engineering reports. I believe you have a copy of the engineer's report.
Yes. But I was just concerned with us human beings dealing with Mother Nature, that hillside has been stable all these years.
Actually, if I may interrupt you, it seemed to me the way those are not really retaining walls, they're fences. that are currently there, they're falling over. I think there's more danger with the current situation than what there will be once this is stabilized and really bolted into the bedrock.
Retaining walls for, there's no retaining walls for number 69, retaining walls for number 71.
Yes, but what I'm saying is the walls that exist on 69 Spruce are failing. Those
Dirt, hillside, woodside.
the hillside, that they are not shoring up the hillside the way this new construction will. This new construction will be a solid concrete bunker to hold that hillside up.
Well,
The way it does for your property as well.
I don't think it would affect mine. I was just concerned
I
with the neighbors
understand.
next to me.
I understand.
And if, I don't know how all of you would feel if this big construction was really close to your home up on a hillside. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Also, are you aware that the engineer will be reviewing all the work that's
Yes.
being done throughout the entire project, and they're very much aware of your concerns?
But I'm just concerned about the engineers and the construction fiddling with Mother Nature and the hillside.
I
Thank
understand.
you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment about 69 Spruce? Okay. I would answer a question whether I'm concerned. Yes, I would be concerned enough to hire a professional engineer to give me an opinion about it. And actually, we were expecting a professional engineer opinion from you, but we didn't receive it.
She's very hard of hearing, and we don't have an adequate hearing aid for her, so if you speak louder, she might actually hear. If you could just speak up.
Did you hear me? I'm sorry. What was your name again? No. So the neighbor at 71, I would be concerned enough to hire an engineer to give me a report about what was going on, so that I could bring some evidence to here to perhaps say something different. But an engineer's report is what we were looking for, and we didn't receive it. So it's hard to deal with without that evidence. No other public comment on this project? Okay, any discussion among us about it?
Well, I wanted to say something. The question about hiring a second engineer, there's an email provided by the neighbor on June 10th stating that she had reviewed the engineering of the wall itself and was comfortable with it. And, she felt that it was reasonable to expect the owner, the applicant, to address some of the other questions that were on the list, one of them being the arborist report and the geotechnical report, which I think are the major concerns. I just wanted to say, by the engineer, he made a very good point that, it starts off at the schematic level, and it's really unfair to expect the applicant to spend so much money on something so far in advance and then maybe have it denied. The engineer should be ultimately responsible for the design and any impacts to the surrounding neighbors. So if the neighbor is comfortable and the reports have been provided, I feel comfortable with what has been presented so far, maybe with a condition that it will be further developed and designed to ensure security and protection of the surrounding residences. So.
Okay, well, there is a condition in the proposed resolution.
And I just wanted to add on to Esther's comment that I think that we received an excellent letter from the geotechnical engineer. This is way better than most geotechnical reports are kind of dry and more, just say, engineer's language. But I think this particular letter tried to to describe things more in a layman's terms so that people can understand that, there is, they're going to be on site. And I think that the fact that one of the points that was mentioned was how the neighboring property was reinforced, and Norm mentioned that, and I think that's a very important thing to, that came out of this report, that the neighbor's property seems like it's protected better than most other properties would be for a project like this. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also wanted to make a suggestion about the engineering review that might be proposed as one of our conditions of approval. The town does have a process where we send drawings, structural engineering drawings, out to an outside agency for review. That's normally part of the normal building permit process, and is not part of the review that I think that was mentioned. The town engineer is a different step that normally does grading and drainage plans for larger developed sites. But during the building permit process, it can go out to the outside agency, and we can, we can list the different things that we want them to review just to make sure that they're taken care of, like the drainage, I think was probably an issue, and the structural requirements, just to make sure that those things meet the code and the provisions of the reports that were provided.
So you'd avoid this was going to be an extra expense if you send it to the town engineer. It's already reviewed by engineers at Coastland Engineering as the normal building permit review process. So it would be less expensive to do it just the standard way.
Okay, well so we need to, I think we should have a condition, maybe condition 2 should be changed completely. I was going to propose some different language for condition 2, but let me say first that we have closed the public hearing period, and we seem to have a consensus on the board here that the project should be approved. And I hear that we have a good alternative in sending this to an agent. What is it? What's the agency?
It's an outside plan checking firm called Coastland Engineering. They have building plan checkers on staff, engineers on staff, and they have all the experts that need to review the drawings, the different aspects of the drawings. So,
just a point of clarification. I'm kind of new on the Planning Commission. So, were you saying, or are you telling us that review has already been done, that is normally done?
When staff wrote the staff report, we didn't have the second engineering report from Mr. Furby, and we didn't have the tree report. So we were writing the staff report, imagining that we weren't going to get that verification by another engineer. So our only option for going forward was to recommend an objective peer review by our town engineer.
Right.
You now have an engineering report that specifically states that the wall will not negatively impact 71 Spruce. So I think the normal process, which is they submit the building construction plans to the building department, and we send them out to this firm called Coastland Engineering.
Oh, okay. So
they
you're
have
saying
engineers
that
on staff.
This is at the next stage of the process.
I don't feel that it's any. At the time, I thought it was necessary to have the peer review. Now that we've gotten the Furby report, I don't feel that that's necessary anymore. So if the commission feels comfortable allowing it to go through the normal process, staff's okay with that too.
I do feel comfortable allowing it to go through the normal process. I just wanted to clarify that when that review happened, so thank you.
Also, through the chair, I also feel comfortable with the Furby geotechnical report. And did the applicant pay for the Furby report? Okay. And I notice on page 1 it says, following project approvals, I will be observing planned excavations into the hillside, the new wall alignment and footings to check that soil and rock conditions encountered are as anticipated, and that the geotechnical work is performed in accordance with his recommendations and the approved plans. So my question to my fellow commissioner, would that be sufficient for you then, Laura? Or would you want yet another? I wasn't clear if you were asking for yet another review.
No, and I believe that is one of our that's another condition that's already stated in the resolution, that the soils engineer is supposed to be on site during the
That's
during
correct.
the excavation process.
All right, that condition is there. So do we want to then take out condition number 2 completely? And that would be my choice. That's fine. It had some language issues.
Number 3 goes back to the original resolution, which is where we started with the standard approvals and protocols, right?
I mean, you know, you have a report from a licensed arborist, which I feel comfortable with, because I don't think the construction is going to negatively impact any trees between the wall and the neighbor at 71 Spruce. So I'm fine with eliminating 3 as well.
Through the chair, I think it's a matter of semantics here of how we phrase the approval, because all of these were contingent upon getting the reports we now have, and so could we simply move to approve it? Could we simply move to approve it, and then it will go through the regular review process by the town's contract engineer, and Mr. Furby will stay on board, right? Should we condition that they continue to have Mr. Furby on board?
That actually is they're supposed to have the project engineer on site during grading.
Okay.
But I do think if you're going to go forward, I would eliminate 2, because 2 is requiring that we have the town engineer re-review everything.
Oh, I'm looking at a different set of conditions, I'm sorry.
You might be looking at the original ones. No?
So this is on the actual resolution.
It's on the reso.
Number 2 on the actual resolution. Recommended conditions.
Okay, comment from Commissioner Caroline?
Yes, as far as at the bottom with the we're talking about the recommended conditions. I think that perhaps we can reword item number 2, so it's clear that we're not abandoning it being reviewed by an engineer, but it'll be, reviewed by an outside.
It will be reviewed. It will be reviewed
agency.
by the
Yes.
outside building permit plan checker, normally used by the town.
And maybe I don't know. Maybe we can strike the negative impact, because we already have a report that states there's not going to be any.
Any way you want to word it is.
And we don't need the applicant will be responsible for covering costs of this. Well, but I mean, that's part of their building permit fees, is
Right.
that they're covering
Right.
those items.
Clarification, I found the correct conditions. Looking at number 3, then, it says, if any trees need to be removed, the applicant and the owner of 71 Spruce will file a tree removal. Should that be 69 and not 71?
Well, that was one of the things in the staff report that I originally when the neighbor complained, I thought there were mature trees between the 2 properties that were going to be negatively impacted. So I thought it was going to be fair for them both to cover the costs for the arborist report. But since then, I've discovered there really aren't
That's
any
not the
trees.
case.
Right. So that's no longer a valid statement anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so I would cross out item 3, and we have a good arborist report, and you know the situation there, and I think we can just cross that condition out. As to condition 2, since the outside plan checker engineering is a standard process, do we need to have a condition?
That could be eliminated as well.
You could, if you wanted to make sure that if someone appealed this, that it was clear in your conditions that there was going to be another review of the engineering
Okay, so
by the building permit plan
Yeah.
check engineer.
I think to be
That
cautious.
could be changed to state what you just said.
Yeah, so you can say the, prior to issuance of the building permit, the plans will be reviewed by the town of Fairfax outside plan check engineer, Coastland Engineering. And that's just the standard procedure.
And we can just leave it at that.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Let's do
I'm
that.
sorry, Linda, I misunderstood what your recommendation was as to item 3 now.
Okay, I know it's confusing. When I wrote the staff report, we didn't have the soils report from the applicant, so I was kind of flying blind. They kept telling me I was going to see it, but I didn't have it. So I needed a way to move forward, and in cases like this where you have two neighbors that aren't agreeing that safety's been adequately addressed, we often put a condition in that our town engineer review the plans, kind of as a peer review. Since then, they have actually hired an engineer to address the concerns of the neighbor, and I feel that that's adequate. There's no reason to think that both the structural engineer and the soils engineer are putting their reputations on the line. They stamp and sign the plans, and so they're both confident that this is not going to negatively impact 71 Spruce. So,
I'm going to interrupt you.
okay.
My confusion is about number 3, which is the arborist.
Oh, the arborist. Okay, sorry. Here, you let me go on so long. Thank you, Amy. Yeah, so the neighbor at 71 Spruce said she was concerned that the wall was going to somehow negatively impact mature, significant trees on the site, right? So I thought that meant there was some mature redwood or something between her house and the wall, but there are no trees between her house and the wall. The only tree that's even of significance that's anywhere close to her house is this deodar cedar that the arborist report says the wall isn't going to negatively impact it. So that condition that I added is really not necessary. And the only trees that are going to come out are 3 pretty small bays that are already kind of at risk because they're just hanging on the cut bank next to the stairs. So, yeah.
So you and Phil were on the same page of just taking that whole
Yes.
paragraph.
Agree with that. Just one final thing. I do see in the conditions that they must retain an engineer who's certified and stamps the plans, but where does it say that their engineer will be required to review all the excavations and the footings and the soil and rock conditions? I don't see that included. I mean, they say so here, but it's not in our conditioning document.
Isn't it in 11?
It's in
During
9.
the
It's in
project.
9 that says that they
Oh, okay.
have to, the structural engineer.
I got it. I just missed that.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
And then at the very end, they have to submit a letter stating that the
Okay.
project engineer shall be on site during grading and shall submit written certification to the town and staff that the grading has been completed as designed and recommended prior to installation of the retaining form. So there's actually 3 conditions that.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right, and I feel confident with that.
Okay, well, we seem to have consensus. Oh, okay, Laura?
I have one more item that
I'm sorry, Laura, can you, thank you.
I had one more item regarding condition number 11. And part of it as far as, vehicles. We're creating this parking space because there's not a lot of, there's no place to park. So, Norm, we've been adding, about the construction management plan where we talk about, deliveries and, parking of construction workers, that kind of thing. I don't see that, that paragraph in this draft resolution. Well, we usually had extra language regarding, and I saw it in one of the other projects, one of the other items.
Yeah, we
was listed.
usually add it for new homes we usually have that condition for new homes in the hillside, but if you want to add it for this, that's fine
Well,
too.
I think areas where we have limited parking, usually
Yeah,
when
so
there's
what
only
it's-
parking on one side of the street, or in this case, there's parking on like no side of the street unless you created parking.
What that condition says is prior to issuance of the building permit, the applicants shall submit a, how is it worded? A construction management plan,
Yes,
subject
that
to
one.
review and approval by the building official.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Like condition 19 about pavement restoration, because the roadways can get severely damaged with work of this nature.
So maybe we could add that prior to language, either we could redo the whole numbering, make it A, or make it an E under 11 perhaps.
E under 11 would be the easiest.
Okay. It's just it's prior to, so it's kind of logically
Oh, well
at the
then,
beginning.
yeah.
But either way, I think it makes sense.
We'll add it in where it makes sense. It may be easier for me just to add it as condition 23B or something before tree removal. Oh, we have two 23s anyway, so I need to work on the numbering. We'll fix the numbering and put it at the end of our standard conditions before the tree removal.
Well, actually, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind seeing it under 11 somehow, because that is the attention-getting construction section. And so this is part of that, it seems to me. So just for logic, and to get the attention of the owner and the contractors who might look at this.
But won't that be a conflict? Because 11 is during construction process. This one's going to be prior to issuance of the building permit.
Okay, then, I hate to say, this might be a good 11, and 11 could become 12, A, B, C, et cetera.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll make it 11, 12, and then renumber.
Give me the third 9.
Or the third 23.
Just for the audience, I mean, these wording changes are necessary because we go through appeal processes and, you know, we have to make sure we're correct. So just bear with us. We seem to have consensus then.
How about
no,
through the
not
chair?
quite.
No?
One more.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to propose this. We seem to have a consensus when you gave us sort of three choices at the beginning of this project, and I think we picked number 3. It looks like project approval with only original conditions. So I would call for a motion
Through the chair?
on approval.
I move that we approve the preferential parking application number 1509 with the proposed new and revised language for the conditions that we've discussed regarding the trees, the parking, the pre-construction, the post-construction, the engineering, everyone's concerns that were mentioned, and we'll let you number them in whatever way makes the most sense as long as you get our comments in there.
And the chair will check it before he signs it.
Good idea.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So 69 Spruce Road is now approved. There is an appeal period of 10 days, a $500 fee for an appeal to the town clerk. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next project.
Which is 163 Lansdale. Well, that one's up first. 163.
Okay, you ready for the staff report?
Well, let me just announce. Okay, so project number 3, 163 Lansdale Avenue, application number 15-25. And our staff report, please. Thank you.
Okay. So the applicants are proposing to construct a 592 square foot hall and office, master bedroom, bath, and loft addition to a 704 square foot single family residence, increasing the living space square footage to 1,296 square feet. The project complies with all the setback, lot coverage, floor area ratio, and height regulations in the RD 5.5-7 zone where it's located. The project does constitute a 50% remodel, and so it is subject, what am I saying here? Oh, so it's subject to design review, and it requires a use permit because the parcel doesn't meet the minimum size requirement of 5,500 square feet. It also is going to require a parking variance, not of the number of spaces, but just because the third parking space that they're going to provide will encroach into the required side yard setback. The proposed addition has been designed to complement the architecture of the existing residence. The sloping shed roof and use of several different window sizes and shapes adds articulation to the exterior, and the shingled siding, trim, roof, and gutters will match the existing residence. The parking in the side yard setback kind of was the old standard for Fairfax. Most of the homes that were built, in the 20s and 30s, the parking was in the side yard setback. And as you drive along Lansdale, you'll see that any number of homes have the parking in the side yard setback. So they only have 2 spaces now. They obtained a variance from the covered parking requirement back when the house was originally built, so there's no need for a variance of that. And we believe having the parking in the side yard setback won't change the character of the neighborhood. So we're recommending that you approve the application by adopting Resolution 1528, which sets forth findings and conditions of approval for the project.
Okay, any questions from Planning Commission of staff? Okay, well, I had a question of what will be the setback if this is approved as planned? What will be, I mean, it seems like it's a fairly narrow distance to the next property, and I'm just wondering. Is it the 6?
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
6 feet and 9 feet are proposed. It's the same as the existing. And more than required.
Yeah, it's 5 feet and 10 for a total of 15.
Okay.
And that's what's required by code, 15.
That's what I was wondering, because
A minimum of 5 and a combined of 15.
So it's 5 and 10, not 6 and 9.
Right. Well,
Okay.
you can have, with the way the code reads, you can have any combination of measurements for your setbacks as long as neither side setback goes below 5 feet.
Well, my question is because 6 and 9 don't add up. Oh, they do. Okay, they add up to 15. All right, we got it. Okay, great. Another couple of questions. The fireproof shingles. The shingles are going to be fireproof. It said shingled siding. It's fireproof shingled siding.
I would ask the applicant that, but the fire department won't let them use anything but something that's fireproof, so.
Okay, because I have seen some wooden shingle siding around here, and
New siding, or was it older?
well, it just is
If
around.
if people are doing it, they're not getting permits from us for it. They're
Okay.
just doing it.
Okay. All right, very good. That's all the questions I have. Okay, then we'll open this to the owner. Would the owner like to step forward, the applicant rather, step forward and tell us about his project?
Hello, I'm Eric Engert. I'm new to this process. I'm a homeowner in San Anselmo for over 20 years with my wife and my 2 children who went through the Ross Valley school system. And the project that we're proposing, my parents live in this house for the 18 years. I'm the primary owner of that house as well. They live in a small house, 700 square feet, and we feel it's an appropriate time to do an addition there. My children have visited that house probably 3, 4, or 5 times a week over the past 18 years. Quite comfortable with that facility. My parents are in their 80s. My dad's in his 70s. And I think that we would like to do the addition for the reason of basically my children want to be over there more often, and someday they might pass along that house to them. They might be helpful in the assisted living process that might need to occur with my parents over time, and so that's my proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. So the applicant, you've had your testimony, and is there any testimony from the public? Any member of the public interested in 163 Lansdale Avenue? Okay, well, hearing no public comment, I guess we could close the public comment period, and we have some comments from the Planning Commission.
I'd like to ask a question of the applicant. Okay, yes. I had a question regarding the parking that's proposed in the front of the property.
Yeah.
So it looks like, so currently you have 2 parking spaces,
Yes.
you know, side by side, and you're proposing a new parking space that's kind of on an angle
Yeah.
adjacent. Can you kind of describe to me how you came up with this configuration?
Well, there really isn't a lot of other places to put a third spot, and my understanding is that we would need to put a third spot in for guest reasons. I came up with that angle design because basically the only way to get into that spot, I didn't want to disturb the curb architecture, so I could easily get in and out of that spot through moving one of the cars and leaving a car there. And so that's why I came up with that spot. There really isn't another better location for it, and it functions pretty well there.
Okay, so you, so by putting in this configuration, you don't need to widen the curb cut?
No, I don't.
Is that the reason why?
Yeah, I
Okay.
could widen if I needed to, but
Okay.
I wasn't sure if that's actually allowable, so I figured I'd leave it the way it is.
Okay, it just, I don't know, it just seemed awkward. I just wanted to ask
Yeah.
how you came up with that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
If I could follow up on that, I wondered why you didn't go straight in instead of at an angle. Is that also just because you'd have to do the curb cut to go straight in?
Yeah.
But wouldn't that give you a lot more space without having to move one car to get another in? Can you, do you actually park at that angle now?
No, we park straight on right now. That's just a bunch of pots of planter boxes that were on that side and a few rose bushes that could easily be taken out. But we could, if it's allowable, I don't mind cutting the curb. I mean,
Because what's the actual size of this space?
it is 50. Is it not 50 by 110? I believe is the.
The one new parking
oh,
space.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Pretty sure
Would-
it's 9 by 19.
Would that even be a compact? Because you can't, can you count
No, I checked.
the part where it runs into the other car?
Well, okay. So,
Compact is like
the town code requires that you have 2 spaces for the main house and a third guest space. The third guest space can block in one of the spaces for the main
Okay.
house.
The third one can.
So,
But is there a minimum required size? The regular.
9 by 19.
That's for the regular parking space.
Well, all the spaces are supposed to be 9 by 19.
Okay.
And the only thing about widening the driveway, do you know if your property line is right at the edge of the pavement?
The property line goes to the edge of the pavement.
I think it does.
Yeah.
So what the town code says is it limits driveway widths in the public right-of-way. So he could widen his driveway, and you can only go wider in the public right-of-way if you go to the town council and get an exception. But if the driveway is on his property, he can make that change and not have to go through any kind of a public hearing process. So you might just leave that up to him, whether just a corner of the spaces in the combined side yard setback or whether he pulls head in and because then he would have a front yard that is basically just all parking. So
Aesthetically, I believe it would look more pleasing if we somehow left it similar to the way it is. We can leave then some trees along the street side.
I can understand.
I also thought that was kind of an odd angle. It might be difficult to make a left from Lansdale into it, et cetera, but that is, it's an aesthetic thing, so that's fine. And I think you have a great idea to take care of your parents, and it's a wonderful, wonderful idea.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
I have, sorry, bring you back. I have a question for you. I applaud what you're doing here. I think it's great. I think it's a really nice little unit or, addition to the existing house. I'm wondering if you would reconsider the slope of the roof and maybe, it's maybe not as exciting if you created a pitched roof that would mimic what's going on in the front. You have extra height if you need it to go a little bit higher to give the headroom on the loft area. The reason I'm asking if you're willing to maybe revisit this is because there's a photograph, and it's page 7 of the project description, that I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, it shows the neighbors, the adjacent units that would be impacted by the addition, which right now it's receiving direct sunlight, and if this is built as is shown here, you would basically have a 21-foot vertical wall, about 6 feet plus 5, or it looks like it's less than 5. So I'm a little concerned about the privacy, and I'm a little concerned about, well, actually a lot concerned about the sunlight that's going to be blocked. And if you know, I'm not sure a pitched roof would resolve that, but it might ease it up a little bit.
It's a valid point. I thought about that, and it is a tight quarters is the issue. So there's 3 sets of neighbors to be concerned about, and I took into account that the neighbor from behind would be able to still access a view out towards the, I believe it is the north, with that wedged type roof, so they wouldn't be blocked out as severely. The property that might be affected by sunlight is actually, there's 2 duplexes that are all rental properties on that side. So there is no individual homeowners. I believe they're all renting the property. So it will impact them in a way that there's going to be a taller structure there than was before. The existing property at the moment is 15 feet high, so we're going to go another 5 feet on the one behind it.
Is that 5 feet at the lowest or the highest point?
At the highest point. The lowest point is actually going to be lower at 10 feet. So it goes from 10 feet on one side to 20 on the other. The other issue is that roof line is only 16 feet wide. So it's going to be 16 feet of sunlight that's going to be blocked out. While it is an issue, I felt that it keeps the project smaller, and that was the side to compromise on.
If you rotated it 90 degrees, granted, this is a rectangle, so you would have to redesign.
Yeah.
But then your highest point would be facing north, which could be nice too.
Yeah. Then then the people in the back, then we're quite. They have a 2-story place that's taller than ours, and they might not appreciate that because then they're going to be staring right at our.
Oh no! You rotate it toward the street. So
toward the street. Yeah, that would be a nice way to do that as well. It does then impact the whole structure. Then moves forward towards the road and becomes more of an influence when you're looking at it that way. And then it would still have the 20-foot pitched roof that the people would have to deal with. And instead of it being 16 feet, it might be 10 feet. So it's. I did consider that, so I'll do as asked, but.
I just, if it weren't so close, a lot of the projects we review have a little bit more of a cushion.
Yeah.
These are so close to each other that where there is nothing now, there's going to be a 21-foot high vertical wall.
And the wall is, I guess there's the roof line there, that the wall itself is about 18 feet, and then there's an eave of another 2 feet.
Okay.
If that's an issue, we could reduce the eave so that it would just be 18 feet instead of the 20 feet. That'd be one way to reduce it a bit.
But the eave is
it's nice.
Yeah.
It's a 2x4. It's a 1x4. I tend to think this is less obtrusive than a pitched roof.
Well, it takes up less vertical space, and plus also I'm well within the 28 feet that you're allowed to go, so I try to keep it as low as I could. And I would have liked to have gotten more space into the loft, but I just figured I would try to keep it as discreet as possible. I also didn't take that pitched roof the wedged roof, the additional feet to connect up to the house. So I try to keep the visibility available for the neighbors on both sides there. And most of the view is really towards that north and west.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or discussion? And there's no public comments, so I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
Resolution 1526, approving the use permit and variance to construct a 592 square foot hall, office, master bedroom, bath, and loft addition to the residence at 163 Lansdale Avenue as discussed.
And the sec,
Is that 1526 or 25?
yeah, there's 25 is mentioned on the staff report cover, but the resolution is numbered 15-26 inside.
Well, it could be the application and the reso have different numbers.
Sorry, so say that again. So the resolution says 1527, and where does it say?
The reso says 1526, and the application on the staff report is 1525. Are they
Yeah,
different numbers?
Yes, they're different numbers.
Okay, so they don't have to match.
Okay, then we'll entertain a second.
Roll call on this.
So we have a request for roll call vote. But we still don't have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, then if the secretary would take a roll call vote for this property, please, thank you.
Aye.
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 No.
Okay, well, it appears that use permit and parking variance for this application will be granted. And thank you very much. There is an appeal period of 10 days and a fee of $500 to pay to the town clerk if you wish to appeal. I don't think you do, though. So have a good relationship with your parents and your grandkids and their grandkids, and that's going to be wonderful. Thank you. So we will then move on to the next project, which is number 453 Belmont Avenue, application number 15-26.
Okay, this
Staff report,
property,
please.
this property is currently developed with 3 units, 1 large single-family home and then 2 smaller detached residential structures. It is zoned for 2 units. So the two of the smaller houses are in pretty bad shape, suffering from deferred maintenance. And so the owners are proposing to tear down the 2 smaller structures to build a new 1,635 square foot 3-bedroom, 2-bath residence. And the proposed house, along with the existing house, will comply with all the setback regulations, the height limitations, lot coverage limitations, and they have modified the amount of impermeable surface so that once the construction is finished, they will comply with the 35% lot coverage limitation. So the only discretionary permit that this requires is design review, because all new structures require a design review permit. And we were able to find that the house complies with the design criteria, so we recommended that you approve the project by adopting Resolution 1527 that sets forth the findings and the conditions for approval.
Okay, I have a question here. This project will end up with 2 distinct houses on this piece of land, right? Okay, just want to make, there's no connection between them at all. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
just wanted to add a question onto Phil's comment there. So are there any town regulations regarding, I know, sometimes you have duplex properties or second units, and we have, that the second structure
Has to
can't
be smaller.
It has to be smaller, a certain size. So
Right.
what is, I'm kind of a little.
We had this tested by a previous property, and because the town doesn't have any kind of definition for duplex, it was determined that there's nothing in our code that requires that the 2 units be attached. So, and there's nothing that limits the size of duplex units. So as long as they meet the setbacks and they don't violate lot coverage, 2 units are allowed, whether they're attached or whether they're detached.
Or there's no requirement that they have to, divide the property or anything?
Equally? No.
No? Okay, and then I also had a question about, because it's kind of at a dead-end street, was there any regulations from the fire department regarding if they needed a fire department turnaround or anything
Nope.
like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't, they just, whatever I put in the report.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they were fine with it. I kind of expected that they were going to ask for something, but they did not.
Linda, are there residents in the existing units that are being demolished?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask the applicant.
Linda, is there an issue?
I think I spoke with someone on the phone that said she did live in one of the units, so I think at least one of them is being lived in.
Is there a issue with the water district? There's a bunch of question marks next to the item
Point me in those direct-
number 3 at the,
In the reso?
maybe in the staff report?
Oh,
The
my.
last page, top of the page of the staff report, page 5.
I don't remember why I had those question marks, but I think it was because I had never seen that condition from the water district before. So I did call them just to make sure, and they do have some kind of underground facilities that they're concerned about it being damaged. So that is definitely a comment on their part. They want that condition in place.
It's a fairly standard requirement
When
you're
they in
building
the
anything.
road, but this is some kind of on the site that they've got something going on that they want it marked.
Right, that
Yeah.
I think is fairly standard.
I've never seen it in any of their comments before, so it was a little unusual. It probably goes without saying, it's required by law that if they have facilities, you're supposed to mark them, but it's between units. It may have something to do with the fact that there were 3 units built at a time, and you've got water connections hooking up in an odd way or something.
To be disconnected and run to the main house from the demolished unit.
Well, it's a good idea anyway, because we had some digging at our house and they hit a water line they didn't even know about. So that's you do have to watch out for that. So any other questions to staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and discuss the plan, please?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Sikorsky. I work for Blue Homes. We're a prefabricated homes company. Our factory's in Vallejo, and I'm the project designer representing the property owners, William and Sandra Edinger. They're out of town, so they couldn't be here today. But as Linda said, we were responsive to all the comments that she had during the design review application process, and I think we've met all the requirements as she mentioned. So. Any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer anything for the property.
Well, I just had one question, because I'm not that familiar with it, about the siding. Apparently it's going to be James Hardy siding, which I looked up on the internet. It's pretty good quality stuff, it seems. And then the color is going to be a Monterey taupe, which, if you don't know, it's sort of a light tan. So what color is the house? This is a design review, so I want to ask you, what color is the existing house that you're not tearing down?
The existing one is kind of a light blue, a very light blue color, almost gray even.
Okay.
And it has the existing house also has white trim, white painted posts and roof trim. The existing house actually also has a gray asphalt roof, similar to the.
And you provided actual physical samples of the siding and the colors. So I think it is quite nice, actually. So just one of the factors here is whether the color of the house matches other houses. So are there other houses on the street that are sort of a brownish, tannish?
I believe the house immediately back out Belmont Ave is a light tan, brownish color, but I believe the trim is darker. I forgot which street turns off of Belmont right there, but it's on that corner.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's really all the questions I had for you. Any others?
Do you know the answer to the question of whether there are actually 3 houses currently on this property? One of them will remain and the other 2 will be taken down and replaced by one. Are there people in all 3 of the current houses right now?
There are people in the 2-story unit that's actually, as you drive to the end of Belmont Ave, that's straight ahead. I believe there are people living there, but the small cottage that's in the rear of the property, I believe the floor has collapsed due to erosion underneath, so I don't think anybody's currently
Okay, so you're saying that these 2 units that will be demolished, one of them is already past the point where people are living in it?
That's right.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me, are any accommodations or allowances for your tenants to facilitate their moving out? Or when will you start construction and when do you evict the tenants?
We haven't set any kind of construction date. We wanted to make sure we would get approval for the house before doing any permitting processes, but I believe the homeowner is planning to give the current tenants enough notice. I think they may be aware because we've been out there taking pictures, and if you've seen their story poles up, so they are probably aware that something is going to happen. But the house that they are living in currently is in pretty bad shape. Even the chimney is starting to fall away from the house.
Still, the most notice possible would be really helpful.
Sure.
Given how hard it is to get a decent place to live these days. Thank you.
I have a question. I love the fact that this is a modular prefabricated house. I think that's great. I have a question about the floor plan and how set are the modules. Just because there are some suggestions I would like to make, I would not deny the project based on those recommendations, but I just was wondering if there is flexibility to maybe change the size of the windows or do something with the floor plan.
We can make some modifications. One limit to our houses is they actually fold. We build them full up, and then part of the floor, the exterior walls fold up so that we can deliver it on a truck.
Okay.
So one limitation is that all the plumbing needs to stay on one side of the house. But in terms of windows and door sizes and locations, those are possible to be changed.
Okay. Well, I just want to bring up a point because I grew up in a house where you had to go through the bedrooms to get to the bathroom.
Yes.
And I hated it, especially when we had visitors.
Yes.
Strangers. And I noticed that in your floor plan, even though this is on the interior, doesn't affect the appearance, both your bathrooms are beyond the bedroom. So I don't know if there's a way to shift bathroom number 2 to the opposite side and reconfigure the bedroom so that you can access, at least somehow, without going through one or the other.
Right. So bathroom number 2, the bathroom number 2 and bathroom number 1 do need to stay on that half of
Oh,
that.
they do.
So the house actually comes in 2 pieces. The long strip is one piece, and the shorter strip is another piece. And so we do have an option in this floor plan to add a half bathroom where that master closet is. So That's the only
Yeah.
change, is it would really reduce the master closet size.
I just, it's just a recommendation, just because you have to go in through the bedroom or to get there. And I just think it would bring a lot of value to the house.
Definitely. Yeah, we can also add
Just a powder room.
closet number 5, where we show washer dryer hookups.
That would be a good start.
That's another location where we could put a half bathroom, but then we need to find somewhere to put the laundry.
Yeah. Okay. It's like a Rubik's Cube.
Yes, it's a little
Okay.
tricky.
Thanks. The other comment I had was about the massing and the style. It kind of wants to look like a shed, but it's really big, and I don't really have a problem with the size, but just in looking at the elevations, you have a lot of little clear story windows, which really don't, they're not in harmony with or at all like the house in the front. And I think there are some really nice features here. I appreciate that you're using, hardy plank that looks like a wood siding, and the color. I like a lot of it. But I think that if the windows could be looked at, maybe again in relationship to the original house, something a little bit more vertical, I think that would do it for me.
Okay. Yeah, I did, the owner actually preferred that those windows were in the front, and I did advise him that we did turn them to the back of the property, especially since the high shrubs that are on the back of the property would not allow the neighbors on the other side to see the house. So, but I can understand your concern there.
Okay. Would that be like a condition to the approval if we did, or how would we deal with that?
That's a good question. Should that become a condition? It's a bit of a design.
Oh. No, the question was, so I asked if he would be willing to revisit the openings so that they are a little bit more in line with the design or style of the original house or the big house, just because we have two different styles going on, I think. And he says, yes, he's willing to look at that, right? I think he did.
I can look at it. We do.
Yeah.
So in terms of the roof slope, the way that is the way that the model is set up.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's not the roof. It's the actual windows on the perimeter. You have a lot of, and I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear, because clear story is on the pitch roof. I'm talking about the windows on the ground level.
Okay.
So you have a lot of long, narrow, high windows that are very different than the original house, which, you have a lot of cased hung openings. Yeah, I'm just thinking that you have two different styles going on here, and if there's something that can be done to make them look a little bit more, to match or similar to the front house, I understand what you're trying to do, but we just have two different styles. The wood siding helps, the color helps. I like this project a lot. I just think that on some of the walls, I was just looking at elevations on A210-1. Let's see, there's. Oh, I just wrapped that up.
Could I ask the,
You're basically talking about this section.
And this.
On A210-1, the elevation on the top of the page, that's the elevation that would be facing the street? So that.
Yeah, that's one of them. If you can, I understand there might be a privacy issue, but on the west elevation, you kind of have, I understand you probably want that blank wall, but then you have another narrow, high wall. I think you could use some relief in that area.
Okay.
Then A211-1. Actually, that's not too bad. But you do have, you have three high little windows, and I don't know. I want it to look a little bit more rhythmic.
Okay.
But these may be the bathrooms.
Yeah, that's correct. Two of the high windows are bathrooms, but there is one that's in a bedroom, and the one on A210 that's in the rear, it's going to be in the rear, is in a bedroom, so we could adjust those.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
So it's just, I don't know, if you can take another look at it to see what you can do to make it look a
Miss-
little bit more.
Mr. Chair, you may want to get other commissioners' feeling about what Esther's saying about the windows so that you can all come to an agreement on whether the applicant should be revisiting it.
Right, actually, I especially want to ask Commissioner Caroline if she has a take on that, because I think the comment here is really, this is design review, so we're trying to keep the properties near each other somewhat similar, if we can, to the feel of the neighborhood.
If I could just address that.
I know, but on this street also, there's a house that's a ranch-style house. It's this sort of dark brown on top and a much lighter on the bottom. So there are some various styles. But I would like to hear if Commissioner Caroline...
Yeah, and if I could just say that, I used to be staff to the Design Review Board, and different design review boards have had different feelings about that, but the actual language is that the architecture shall complement the other structures in the neighborhood. And you do have some neighborhoods in Fairfax where you don't have any type or identifiable type of architecture. So that's all I wanted to say. And this site is so large, there's no regulation that says that the owner won't eventually build a fence, and these, they'll look like they're on separate pieces of property. So you need to take that into account before you decide whether you want them to make changes to what they're proposing.
Okay, well, the only change I actually saw that I didn't like in the plan was the slope of the carport. I think that needs to either come down or be, I think you're doing it for a drainage purpose perhaps, but it maybe needs to come down or even be flat. And that's kind of the comment I have about that design. Thank you. Any other?
Just a clarification as far as our order. We're, at this point, I believe we're asking questions of applicant, but we might hear public comments as well. So then we'll have a chance to talk more.
Absolutely. The public comment period is coming right up. So I just want to, any further questions of applicant?
Yes, and Phil, you touched on a point that I wanted to ask the applicant was the carport. And I'm kind of bothered by the shed roof because I think that it is kind of, it does look, I don't know, out of scale with what's behind. I think maybe a flat roof or a gable type roof would work better. I also think it's unfortunate that that little dog leg piece of the property isn't big enough for the carport to go right there, because that would have been the perfect place, because I don't know, the placement of the carport seems awkward to me in relationship with the other two pieces and the relationship with bedroom number 2, because the window that's in bedroom number 2 that's right there facing, that one bothers me. That one should really be a large window. And I'm looking at the other window that's in bedroom number 2. Doesn't seem like it's big enough to meet the egress. So I'm kind of concerned about the sizes of the windows in bedroom number 2 and the carport. So I don't know. Did you explore other locations for where the carport could be located?
Unfortunately, due to the setbacks, the carport has to be 10 feet away from the property boundary, so that was really the only location we could put it without getting too close to the existing house, for one. And we also wanted to try to keep some of the trees that do separate the two houses as they are right now.
Well, did you also maybe consider, where the two cars are located, maybe putting the carport there instead, and then using like the area, in front of bedroom number 2 more for like an open parking space?
We did talk about that. I did talk about that with the property owner. The fact was that we would then have to have a two-car carport, and it came down to more of a cost thing on that, not a thing that we could change, but also that this side of the house does face south, and by putting a carport there, we would be blocking a lot of the natural light that would be coming into that space, and those sliding doors there. So those are two reasons we put the carport on the side there.
Linda touched on, well, what is planned? Is there any plan for some type of separation between the two homes? Especially the back corner is awfully close to the existing residence. So I was wondering, is there some plans for landscaping or fence, or is there anything planned to, divide the property for the
I think there was a condition in the resolution, correct me if I'm wrong, that the permit was contingent on a landscape design being submitted. I was just asking for confirmation that I think the permit approval is contingent on a landscape design being submitted and approved, which would provide buffers and...
Right, but you also
no?
have the ability, there's time to continue
time.
this if you want to see
Okay.
something. If you don't feel comfortable going forward, it's within your purview to continue it and ask for more information or redesign. You are acting as the design review board.
I've heard a number of really good comments from commissioners, and I think you wouldn't get what you want by saying, take a look at this, and if we continued it and then had an opportunity to take a look at that, would that be the end of the world for you guys? Would that ruin the rest of your year if we continued it to the next meeting to have you explore these comments about the sloping on the roof and the windows?
I don't think it would affect us, drastically. It's, I don't want to speak for the owner, and it's more his schedule that we were trying to move towards. So.
Is this the owner stepping up?
No, this is, you can introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Greg Desmond with Blue Homes, and another employee of Blue Homes, and also involved heavily with this project. And one of the things that you may want to consider is we have developed a relationship with Linda, and we'd be more than willing to work with Linda on some of these items if you were able to come to a point in which approval was something you could get to. I feel confident that what I've heard tonight are items that we could easily address and work with Linda to get to. So it's just something I wanted to throw out there.
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say whether we should continue or not because.
Well, I would just say to you that staff, unless you can feel comfortable stating approval with, the window on the north side shall be increased to such and such square foot or decreased, I don't want to have staff be in the position of trying to guess what each of 7 people or 6 people were envisioning. It just doesn't work. So unless you can be specific, I would prefer that you continue it and see it yourself before you take action on it.
I can assure you that because of the way that we build these houses and factory built, that we're very conscious of all the codes, and all the windows do meet egress requirements, and we understand that it's required that every bedroom does have an egress window. So.
Can I ask, how much flexibility do you have in terms of the design of these homes? Are they essentially each custom design? Like if commissioners or through this process we were to ask you to change the size or location of a particular window, is that something you can do?
We can do it. The houses are all pre-designed, and this owner, he was very specific that he wanted to go with the standard model, which this is. He didn't make any upgrades or changes to this standard.
So there might be an additional cost to the owner.
There would be an additional cost to the owner.
Okay, just a question. Well, I just, as a comment, and I really do think that we need to, I'd like to hear public comment if there is any. But I understand what Linda is saying, that it's kind of, we don't want to be vague.
You might want to ask if the owners would be available for the September meeting, because it seems like some of the concerns and maybe recommendations that you're making will impact them. It'll impact their costs, and right, they're out of town, right?
That's correct.
So will the owners be available next month?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, it seems that we might need to close the comments from the applicant then and open it to public comment at this point. If there are anybody who wants to step up and talk about this project, this is the public comment period is open now.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair. So my questions aren't specific to this project, but they're unique to this project in the sense that it's not often we have a residence being demolished in Fairfax instead of, Cassidy to Baker, 145 Lansdale. It's not often we have a property or residence getting demolished in Fairfax. I know it happens, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is what's the threshold for demolition rather than rehabilitation or altering the existing residence? I understand the cottage in the back is dilapidated and not livable, but that was one question I had. And then the second question I had is kind of what a few of you were touching on as far as the character of a neighborhood. And I know we have a lot of variation in Fairfax. Even on this property, you have 1910, 1925, and 1951. So we have, it varies. But I've come here before and kind of brought up the idea of having a consideration, whether it's when you're looking at design review, but thinking about the respecting the historic character of the neighborhood as far as the detail and the scale and the massing, which you kind of touched on. But again, I'm not totally zeroing in on this project, so to speak, but just something for you all to think about now and in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Any other public comment about this project? Oh, I'm hearing none. We'll close the public hearing portion. And any discussion among us? Is there a consensus for a continuance of this project to see some design changes?
I would like to see it continued. I think there are a couple of things that could be improved upon. Again, I really support this project. I just think it needs a little bit more in terms of making it look more like Fairfax. I know these prefabricated houses have a certain look, but just maybe something in the openings. Also, I noticed the resident was planning to, just preserve the natural state of the vegetation. And so then there was the condition for landscaping. That is a design issue. Even if it's a schematic, I would like to see a schematic of the landscape, just because it is part of the design. And it would be nice to see how you plan to buffer the two residences, especially where the kitchen backs up, which is one, big blank wall. So it'd be nice to kind of see how you're going to break that up or buffer it. So it's just minor stuff. Again, I'm in support of this project, but I'm not sure it's quite there yet. So I would support a continuance.
Anyone else?
I would also support a continuance. I'd like to see some answers to the questions, some new design, some landscaping, definitely. And it wouldn't be fair to do so without getting the owner's comments. So that is another reason to wait until September and see what the owners, they may have reasons for doing things one way or another. And so I would, and also support the project.
Anyone else?
I would like to see if there's some alternatives for the carport. I think it maybe could be relocated and still a single carport, maybe placed in the front, or maybe, or if it can't be, you know, if it can't be relocated or something, maybe some good reasons why. But I think that the shed roof is really too, seems to be out of scale and bulky for the front of the house. So I would definitely like to see that issue dealt with.
Right, I had that specific issue, the carport roof incline, I think. It makes it kind of look like a grasshopper there. It just looks strange to me. Any other comments? Okay, does anybody want to propose a motion?
I move to continue, where is it? Design review application number 1526 to the September meeting, to give the opportunity to the owners to attend and the designers to maybe make some improvements.
And specifically to look at the carport, the windows, the siding of the carport, the sizing and style of the windows to be more in keeping with the historic character of the area.
And landscape issues and buffering between the residences.
Okay, so
I will second that motion with the caveats.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, I'm not in favor of a continuance. I had fairly specific, but we will be continuing this project till next month. And if you want to appeal this, you have a 10-day appeal period, and the fee is $500 paid to the town clerk.
So let me make sure I understand. So you're voting no on the continuance?
I'm voting no on a continuance, but
Okay.
I'm only one, and this is a democracy.
A continuance, right. You have to
Okay, so
make a decision first.
there is a continuance. We have made the decision. Okay, moving on to...
And you're continuing it to the next regular...
We are continuing it to the next meeting. Let's see when that is. I believe it's September 17, third Thursday in the month. Thank you.
Would it be outrageously outside of the scope of our time here to just ask really quickly of other commissioners whether I noticed that the applicant had the small size prints. I'd love to have those small size prints. I have to take over my living room in order to. No, I don't need them now. But if you bring something to us next month, it'd be fine with me if they were small. I don't know what you all think.
Only if you provide a magnifying.
You don't like them small? All right, never mind. Forget it. Okay, we
Well,
like the big ones.
If there are any other contractors out there, if you want to produce small prints so that we can deal with them a little bit easier up here, that would be really handy. Thank you.
I wouldn't ask for a dual set of prints. I'm not asking for that. So scratch the whole comment.
Okay, so...
Rearrange your living room.
53 Belmont, I have to get a larger desk. 53 Belmont will be continued to September. Okay, moving on now to number 5, 15 Scenic Road, application 15-27, request for use permit and variance. Thank you.
Okay,
Staff report.
this application is a request to convert a storage shed on the property to a bedroom with a full bath and a closet to be used in conjunction with the main residence. In order to bring the property more into compliance with the parking requirements for a single-family residence, the applicants also proposes extending the driveway further back onto the property and I had this incorrect in the staff report. They actually only have one parking space there. So they're actually going to widen the driveway and extend it to increase the parking on site from 1 space to 3 space, which is the parking amount required for a single-family home. The project requires the approval of the following discretionary permits. It requires a use permit because the town code does not allow by right accessory structures to be used for living space. They're allowed for garages and tool sheds. The code does give the Planning Commission the authority to approve accessory uses other than those that are listed as permitted. And you can do that if you can make the following findings. And the finding number 1 is that the approval of the use permit shall not constitute a grant of special privilege and shall not contravene the doctrines of equity and equal treatment. 2, that the development and use of the property as approved under the use permit shall not cause excessive or unreasonable detriment to adjoining properties or premises, or cause adverse physical or economic effects thereto, or create undue or excessive burdens in the use and enjoyment thereof, or any or all of which effects are substantially beyond that which might occur without the approval of the use permit. 3 is approval of the use permit is not contrary to those objective goals or standards pertinent to the particular case and contained or set forth in any master plan or other plan or policy officially adopted by the city. And 4 is that approval of the use permit will result in equal or better development of the premises than would otherwise be the case, and that said approval is in the public interest and for the protection or enhancement of the general health, safety, or welfare of the community. So conversion, I looked at the square footage of other homes on similar sized properties, and I searched the tax records, and I discovered that while there are 4 other 5-bedroom, this would increase the number of bedrooms on the property from 4 to 5, and it would increase the number of bathrooms, full bathrooms, from 3 to 4. So in the neighborhood, you find that most of the neighborhood residences are 2-bedroom and 2-bath structure. There's only one other 5-bedroom house that has 4 full bathrooms, and all the bedrooms and bathrooms are contained within the existing dwelling. They're not in detached accessory structures, and that's at 22 Azalea. Most of the other 5-bedroom homes I could find have 2, 2.5, or 3 bathrooms. While the Planning Commission has granted other use permits for detached bedrooms and full bathrooms on other properties throughout town, they were in conjunction with much smaller homes, always with only 1 or 2 bedrooms and 1 or 2 bathrooms. Therefore, granting a use permit for a detached 5th bedroom and 4th bathroom on this property that already has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms could be considered a grant of special privilege. Likewise, the size and layout of the existing structure with 4 rooms that can be used as bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, a kitchen, dining room, living room, laundry room, office, and foyer already provides the owner with a substantial use of the property. And this neighborhood is pretty congested with limited parking. So if the commission should determine that that as proposed, there would be a granting of special privilege. One way to minimize that granting of special privilege would be to limit the bathroom in the detached structure to a half bath. That helps ensure that anyone living there would have to really be a part of the household family because they'd have to bathe in the main house and they'd have to use the kitchen in the main house. The project also requires a parking variance because not for the number, they're going to require the number of parking spaces for a single family home, but they are going to place the new 3rd space in the side yard setback, which the code prohibits. This is very similar to the situation you just reviewed previously on Lansdale. A lot of the homes in that area of town have the parking in the side yard setback. That wasn't made illegal until later on, and so it would not change the character of the neighborhood to put that parking in the side yard setback. So we are recommending approval of the project, but we included the condition that the applicants sign a deed restriction and that the bathroom in the detached structure be restricted to a half bathroom. So that would conclude our report.
And Mr. Chair, if I may just add a couple of comments. As Linda said, should the commission determine that as proposed there would be a granting of special privilege, one way to address that is to restrict the bath to a half bath. I would just throw in the caveat and or put a deed restriction on it. You could choose to not limit the half bath, the bath to a half bath, and still do the deed restriction, okay? And in her report, she mentions Airbnb, and this is a real hot button issue in many towns and ours, and there's going to be a special council meeting to address Airbnbs. You might have seen in the paper today, Tiburon disallowed all vacation rentals by owner and Airbnb. So that's coming soon to the attention of the town council. So I would just throw in the caveat that, you know, there's sort of two ways to address this, and they don't both have to happen. You know, one is the half bath and one is the deed restriction. And the resolution was written up with the half bath, but it'd be very easy if you chose to stay with the whole bath to just take out the reference to the half in the resolution. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Through the chair, I have a couple of maybe odd questions for staff. One is, does each bedroom require a parking space then?
No. Any houses that are 3 bedrooms or more require 3 parking spaces. So you can have a 10-bedroom house that only requires 3 parking spaces.
Three.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, can I throw something else out? It came to my attention just today that this property actually sits in the non-wildlife urban interface zone of town. Remember, we stipulated in the update of the fire code that in the non-wildlife urban interface area, which is abbreviated WUI, in the non-WUI up to 30% slope, when the town updated the fire code, it relaxed the sprinkler requirement on new second units within that area. So while the fire department has stipulated that this detached building needs a sprinkler system, it's ironic because if it was actually a second unit, it wouldn't. It's a catch-22. So I'd like to just go on record to encourage the applicant to possibly revisit this issue with the fire department because it seems like a catch-22. Also, in our discussions about updating the second unit ordinance, which I'll be touching on in my report later tonight, we've constantly discussed not only relaxing the sprinkler requirement, which was accomplished through the update of the fire code, but relaxing where appropriate in the non-WUI up to 30%, the parking requirements for second units, okay? Now that comes down to sort of a neighborhood by neighborhood situation because there's a lot of antiquated subdivision areas in the town that are really, truly problematic with on-street parking. And then lastly, should you go in the direction of a deed restriction, there's nothing that prevents the applicant from coming in later to apply to turn this into a second unit. So deed restrictions are just with regards to what you might or might not be approving tonight, but in the future, nothing stops that person from coming back in to apply for this to be a second unit.
Okay, thank you. That leads to my next question, which is, what else would be required to make this a legal second unit?
Well,
does it need yet another parking space? And then, of course, a kitchen.
Right, it needs a kitchen, it needs another parking space. I believe that it will require a separate water meter if it's detached.
Okay.
Units
It can
that are
stay in the
attached.
setback, though, because it's non-conforming where it sits today.
Right, the structure was built at a time when it was okay to be where it is.
And just for clarification, it would need another parking space or a variance for that parking space.
Or a variance for it.
And if in the future we revisit the second unit ordinance and relax the parking requirements, at that later date, the applicant wouldn't be faced with the hurdle.
Right. This is definitely one of those that we may want to look at a later date as a case study. And then my last question is there any reason why they could not have an outdoor shower or bathtub? Is that precluded in our codes?
We'd have to research that, I think.
Yeah, I just don't know about the building code. Laura, do you know anything about the building code?
We'd have to research it, but I don't think it would be a formal situation. Yeah.
So just following on the question of if it were to later, if this small building were to later become a second unit, if it were to later become a junior second unit, would that be possible? Would this be considered a bedroom and therefore?
Interesting.
Well, it depends on if you modeled it after Novato, because Novato is the only town, and those were required to be inside an existing building,
Well,
wasn't it?
interesting point, because if this is legitimated as ancillary living space, we've yet to codify the junior second unit policy in the housing element, and there are different models out there in the ordinance, but it's something we could consider when we codify the junior second unit. Oh, and by the way, that would address Norma's question about the cost, and two of the largest costs are the sewer hookup and the water hookup. Right there, you're talking almost $20,000 just to formalize a second unit. And with junior second units, Novato has had great success with getting the local utilities to not require hookup fees because it's already within the allowed built environment.
Well, these are all good ideas to explore, I think. I just was asking for clarification on Ross Valley Fire Department Condition 1. They say the fire protection system shall be installed throughout the entire building. They mean just this new part,
We
right?
checked with them today on this very issue because the building is singular, not plural, and they verified it's singular. It's just this building, not the primary residence. And of course, again, there's still this catch-22 that if this was a second unit, it would be exempt from the sprinkler. That's correct.
If I may ask just to clarify on the parking, could you explain there's 3 spaces currently, including
No,
the street?
there's one space, like 1.5 right now. Really only one that meets our requirement of 9 by 19. They're going to widen the driveway so that it will accommodate 2 side-by-side cars, and then they're going to extend it further back towards the shed structure that in the side yard setback. So there'll be 1, 2, 3.
I thought I saw something about there being a 3rd guest spot on street.
Yes, yeah. So the code allows you to have your 3rd guest space on the street. They're providing additional parking. They're providing an additional 3rd space on the site. So they will have the 3 required by the code, and they will have an additional one.
Yeah, I see the sketch. I'm just trying to understand because I'm just a little confused by the correction of the sort of what they have now, and it's 1...
They're adding more than is required. They're adding more than is required, yeah, to try to help justify why they're creating living space and a new bedroom when they already have 4 bedrooms, 3 baths in the house. So they felt that they were able to provide another space which might help minimize the impacts of potentially another vehicle driver living in that new living space out there.
Through the chair, their application states that this creates an additional rental unit. And this house is close to public transportation, allowing people who don't afford to have a car. So their plan initially, when they submitted their application, was a separate rental unit.
You're going to have to ask them why, if that was the original application. We've kind of gone back and forth, but I believe it was probably because of the cost of the hookup fees and that they decided to scale it back.
I think that was the case.
Okay,
you
so
can ask.
They no longer have that intent or understanding that they could do that.
Again, I think it was the onerous cost of formalizing the second unit.
And people can apply for whatever they want. You know, I don't live in this town, but I do have an opinion, and staffs, we try to make the findings, right? So I looked at this site, and that's just my opinion that I could not make the findings. I believe that this house is already larger than most of the houses in the neighborhood, and I believe that creating a detached bedroom is not in keeping with You know, if you grant it here, you have to be willing to grant it in other places throughout the neighborhood. You don't all necessarily have to agree with me.
And if you bear with me, one final question for staff. I see on page A12, and then I read somewhere else that bedroom number 3 in the main house gets modified to access the rear unit or bedroom, but I don't see any plans or drawings showing how that, the only other plan or drawing that I have is A11, which shows a walkway of some sort, but I don't see anything about the modification of bedroom 3. So can you explain that? Am I missing something?
Right now, bedroom 3 is separated from the rest of the house. Staff believes it was walled up, and it was being used basically as a separate unit. I wasn't the inspector, but I believe the inspector told me that there was something to heat food. So basically, there already was a second unit that was abated in the past, and it was never reopened up so that it was part of the main house. So that's part of their plan, because if you see the office, where the office is now, on A12, where they have that little dashed line, that's a wall now. So that was being used already as a second unit that was unpermitted, not by this owner, but by a previous owner. So we told them that we would be unable to support the project for a new bedroom, detached and accessory structure, if the floor plan still lent itself to 2 units in the main house. So their plan is to open that back so that it's all can be used as a single-family home.
All right, I'm sorry, but I would like
You want me
to
to come up
see
there?
that.
Right here. Yeah.
No. I would like to.
See inside the house, you mean?
No, I'd like to see the plans done in such a way that incorporates it, where I just have this black line through bedroom 3. What is that?
It's on here.
I think that's just an error. Let me.
I see that. What's this line? And how does that get incorporated into the back unit? Where did I see that? What I'm saying is, like, I like to see a set of plans that tells me what it is, that I don't have to try to figure it out. Like an existing and then proposed? Yeah. And then I read somewhere about a connection, let me find it, a connection from bedroom 3
Norma?
to the back. Do you guys remember where that is?
Norma, can you?
Where did I see that? Or was that an old? It's on.
So, Mr. Chair, point of order.
Yes.
Norma has made a statement about the adequacy or inadequacy of that detail of the plan, but I think you can move on and continue to finish with questions from us, and then interview the applicant and the public, and then get into the woods on the discussion.
Right. So, so we haven't heard from the applicant yet. Are there any more questions for staff at this moment? Okay. So, then I invite the applicant to come up and, or his agent, architects, et cetera, to come up and discuss the plan with us, please. Thank you.
Hit that. Check. All right. I know it's getting late, so I'll try to be to the point and as clear as I can. So my name is Jay Sherlock. I'm a licensed architect, and I live in Fairfax, so I have a lot kind of riding on this project, and I stand behind it. I want to answer all those questions. We do have some clear answers for you. The first thing that I would like to do, though, is to thank Susan, and she's the receptionist, and Linda, who we've been working with the entire time. And they have been great and had an open mind. And I know they deal with many difficult and aggressive people, so I just want to let them know that they've been doing a great job on a tough project. So eventually, them and myself, we're trying to do the right thing for individuals and the community, and that's kind of what this project dials kind of is becoming here, is trying to do the right thing. And my clients have very limited funding for this, so we're doing everything we can to legalize this project, because this detached structure, which we're proposing to be a guest room, has been used for everything but a shed, which is what it's described for. So it's been on the property for a long time, and everybody has used it improperly. So as soon as my clients learned that this is not up to par, we have been working on everything we can to legalize the structure and create a safer condition for everyone. One thing I just want to say right away, there's a note on page number 4 in the first paragraph, and it states that we already have 5 bedrooms. So I just want to correct that. I think that's a typo. We only have 4 bedrooms currently. And then just kind of going through what Linda said, I think tonight's meeting in terms of Linda's position isn't about allowing the guest room. After working with us and understanding we're trying to do everything we can to create better conditions, she seems in favor of allowing the guest room and just wanting to make sure that things are going to be done properly, because a lot of people change their mind or agree to something and then do something else. So the 2 main topics that we're dealing with today, I think, are the bathtub, allowing a bathtub in the space or not, and then marking the deed. So just to get right into it, I think the bathtub, Linda's doing a great job here of holding property owners to their word. This is something that I feel is important also, living in Fairfax. Linda would like to create conditions that ensure the person in this room will be connected to the house. I think that is clearly done when you remove the kitchen. We are not going to be having a kitchen here, so somebody will need to eat, and the connection will be to go into the house. So I believe that the kitchen 100% ensures a connection to the house for whoever's in the space. By removing the bathtub, I believe I understand what's going on, and we're trying to keep that connection strong, but I think you'll be creating a condition here where it's a bit awkward. So if somebody is in the room and they want to take a shower, they will probably be walking across the yard in their slippers, in a towel, in a robe, half dressed. Might not be the best thing for the neighbors. I can also imagine in the wintertime when it's cold and raining, crossing a muddy yard to go into the house with my shampoo bottle and my towel, or my backpack carrying all of my stuff. So I believe the bathtub might not be the leverage point for this particular item. I believe that the kitchen suffices for a connection to the house. The bathtub would just, allow for proper conditions for somebody not to cross the yard half-dressed or in the middle of a storm. The deed, to notarize and record the deed and restrict this will, in my mind, devalue and taint the property. I think the town codes change on density and development. Maybe in the near future we'll be encouraging more development. And for all I know, the town could be currently working on plans to encourage more rentable spaces and or units. So maybe the deed can be marked, but I think it's very crucial on what we say and how we say it. And I might jump back into that a little bit later. So yes, according to the town code 17.084.03, the Planning Commission has the authority to approve accessory uses. The approval of the permit, when it all boils down to it, results in equal or better development of the premises than would otherwise be the case. In terms of equal development, there are 3 to 4 properties of similar size. 22 Azalea does have 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. This is making us not a special privilege. We are just a unique one. We have a very uniquely shaped lot. It is not rectangular in form. It has 5 different points, all funny angles, which has created this structure outside of the house. So due to the unique circumstances, it's not all under one roof. In terms of better development, we are legalizing an existing structure that has been previously used for all types of things. We will be adding additional parking spaces, which is very difficult on this property. We're insulating, we are updating the electrical, we're updating the plumbing per code. We're even adding sprinklers because the fire department is really pushing us. And again, all on a shoestring budget. We're creating a better general health, safety, and welfare for the community by doing all of these things. This proposal not only creates affordable housing for one more person, but it creates affordable housing for 4 people. The owners are included. And in that number, 4 people is a 4-person house is very typical in the area, a family of 4. So we're not having a large amount of people that we're proposing to live on the property. The lot is larger than some of the surrounding structures, so that plays a bit of a role into the property and how much volume it has. We are not adding any additional square footage to this property. I think that part needs to be said. We're not building anything new. Everything exists. We are trying to legalize conditions that are already going on. No structures are added, and we're just bringing everything up to code. In terms of the 5 bedrooms, you know, you would love to build a house from scratch, but most of us, if we even have the opportunity to buy a property, we buy into a situation. So this property has some situations. Our clients were lucky enough to be able to grab that, and they want to hold on to it. And I think that if you were to know them well, you will realize that 2 of the so-called bedrooms, so bedroom is called a bedroom because it has a space with a closet in it. So due to that, this is getting a 4-bedroom, currently a 4-bedroom label. 2 of the bedrooms are used for offices. We have a full-time home office and a part-time home office. The part-time home office goes to somebody who's commuting 3.5 hours a day. And I brought some visuals here just to show you. I'm going to step up there and show you. But the top one is one of the offices, and the bottom one is the other office. And these are in the back 2 right. So if you're looking from the street, the back 2 right rooms.
So we need to get as much of this conversation on the record. Sorry, we need to get it on the record.
So yes, it's legal to rent a room in your house, and I think Linda brought up a great issue with this room, that previously it was used probably as a rental unit. So to help make that work out so that we don't have that. We are taking a wall out and proposing a door, which if you take a look again at 1.2, and I can come up there and point, there is text going out to the right of the page pointing to these portions, and it says to demo wall, and it also says to create a new 28-inch door opening. So I'm hearing that you would like a little more detail on that. We can draw some details for you, but we're going to be opening up a wall and putting a door in that place. And just to get on that subject about kind of drawings and adding more details, again, we're working as hard as we can to keep this budget down so that we can legalize this space, which means that my clients are drafting this project as much as possible. They're drafting over 50% all by themselves, which is not what they do for a living. And they're doing a great job. And I'm helping with the other portion. And then, of course, they've hired me to review the whole project and work with all of you.
Just one more question for you. Why do you not make the rear cottage an office and use the bedrooms as bedrooms, because they all have attached bathrooms?
Yeah, I think the goal here is to create comfortable conditions for everybody. We have these rooms in the house that are used as offices. We all want our personal space. If I'm to rent a room myself, I would like to have a personal space of my own. If possible, if we had enough money in the budget, we would create a second unit. So the goal in the future would be to create a second unit. That would be a wonderful thing. That would be a higher rental income. We would for sure be able to afford the property. And so the goal is to keep that going. It was a rental unit in the past. It's kind of what they bought into, not knowing that all of these other things that I know about apply. So to answer your question, it's just the house has certain conditions. They have offices in the house close to where they live, close to the kitchen, and that space is, to be a rental unit and give some privacy.
Your intent is to make it a rental unit.
A room right now is a rental. If we had the money and ability, we would propose this as a separate unit. That would be great. Yeah.
Well, what is the thick 45-degree angle line on 1.2, A1.2, that sort of crosses the bottom of that drawing?
I'm going to step up there and take a look at your drawing.
It's page A1.2.
That is an anomaly. That's called, that is a viewport cut. So essentially we are, for some reason in your PDFs when they were printed, this line that is usually hidden, if you look at my drawings, it's not in there.
Printing issue.
It's an anomaly.
Okay.
It happens once in a while. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant's architect? No? Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll open to the public for comment on this property.
Thank
you. Yes, please step forward and push the mic button is already pushed.
So I won't be pushing the mic button tonight. All right. First of all, I can't believe that you guys do this, and I really appreciate it because it's really important. And I celebrate your strength to sit up here and listen to all of this and to review these things and to dig deeply in all of these records. I could not do this, and I'm grateful that you do because it's really important. And it's particularly important to Tony and Gwen here who are petitioning to create this space in the back of their house. We all love this part of the world. We all love Fairfax, and I don't know I'm sure you all have stories of people you know who've tried to find a house because their house got sold and they didn't have anywhere to live, or they really wanted to come be here but they couldn't find a place. There aren't that many places. And when they told me that their intention was to ultimately create a standalone that would become affordable housing for someone to be in this place, and that they were accommodating their neighborhood by creating extra parking and by putting the fence forward and keeping it nice, it just makes sense. And I understand that we're bound by history and that we're trying to maintain the spirit of Fairfax. But I think this falls within it. And I think they're really trying very hard and sparing no expense when it comes to making it an appropriate venture for Fairfax. I mean, it's a shoestring, as the genius man over here said, but they're spending the money in the right places. So I really hope that you'll honor their intention and also help create some space where some kind person can also participate in this wonderful community, for which I'm grateful to be a part of. Thank you. Oh, I didn't say I'm Brandon Barber. That's my name. All right. Thank you.
Okay, now you can push the button. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Any other members of the public, or if the applicants are here themselves? Yes.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for entertaining our comments. My name is Jenny Cannon. I live at 17 Scenic, which is the house directly next to the 15 Scenic that we're talking about. And I just came tonight in support of what they're trying to do there. I think in particular the providing of the parking spaces will be really a real plus for the neighborhood to have that off-street parking, because as we all know, our streets really do get full up of cars. So I really support what they're trying to do over there. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other, oh yes, please step forward.
Good evening. My name is Jason Richardson, 20 Napa Avenue. I also just want to register my support for this project. I feel it's really important just to acknowledge that they're doing this work to legalize this space and trying to find some ways to provide housing for folks in a way that's very responsible for the neighborhood. So just wanted to acknowledge my support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other testimony? Yes? Two, thank you.
My name is Dolores Cordell, and I don't live currently in Fairfax, but I did live here for 18 years, including 2 years at 15 Scenic and 16 years at 9 Scenic, so I'm very familiar with this property. And one of the points I would like to address is that the comment about whether this is a special privilege, and seems to me that what we have here is there are 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, 4-bath houses in the neighborhood. There's also units the Planning Commission has approved with standalone units with bathrooms in them. This kind of falls between two chairs, and that exactly is why we have a Planning Commission, is to decide that they, being told on the one hand their house is too big, and on the other hand it's too small. But the real point is to provide some affordable housing here. There is one other issue that I don't think anybody has addressed, but I did notice it in the report, which was about moving a fence back where the parking will be, so that the fence is behind the third parking space. Well, I have to tell you, if you take down the fence there, this property slopes up, and the side of the house has quite a large porch that comes off of the kitchen with some stairs. If you take that fence and move it back, you are exposing a big portion of the corner of that house. I think it's both a security and a privacy issue and kind of a livability issue. I think it makes that much less comfortable and convenient, and I'm sure nobody actually wants to look at any more cars than we already do. So I would suggest that it would be much better for that property, having lived there, I know this, it'd be much better to have the fence where it is currently on that property. So, and as far as the affordable housing, I certainly do support that, because we all know it's a terrible issue, and Fairfax is one of those places that has a heart. Okay, thank you very much.
Can you clarify for me, are you talking about the fence that runs, can you clarify, are you speaking about the fence that runs on the outside edge of the property where the parking would go?
Well, as I understand what's being proposed is that right now there is a fence, and as you enter from the street, from Scenic, or maybe Jay has the words better than I do.
Thank you. So there's currently a fence between where the parking is and the side yard that leads to the rear yard. And I think the goal is always to keep architecturally and aesthetically everything pleasing from the street, from the facade. And a lot of cars park behind gates and park behind garage doors. So on this property, there has been a note about moving the fence behind the final car. I think that proposal wouldn't create an aesthetically pleasing situation. You'd have, we've all seen the parking lots in front of people's houses that are just filled with cars. So this is something that we feel would be aesthetically pleasing, to keep a gate and a fence there and just have a couple of cars and the other one's tucked away. That's it.
So just to make sure we understand, you're saying then that you would prefer to basically leave the fence where it is, put a gate in it, so that the car that is behind the other two cars would go through that gate?
That's correct.
Yeah, just to make sure we're clear. Yeah. Thanks.
And Mr. Chair, there's a detail on this 8.5 by 11 detail on top of your plans.
There is a gate there now, and has been for ever since I can remember.
It shows it with the gate now. You're still on public comments.
Okay, another comment. Please step forward. Thank you. And the mic's already on, so you're all set.
My name is True Heights, and I live at 20 Scenic across the way. And I have had the privilege of watching what happens to that property when Dolores was living there, when Daryl was living there, the previous owner, and now that Tony and Gwen are there. And if you want to talk about a Fairfax aesthetic, that property was, I don't know how many dump loads of junk had to be taken out, and dying plants, and they have made it so beautiful. They've even got raspberries growing up a vine on the front tree. It's just, and not only is there that aesthetic there, but the kind of neighbors they have been and the kind of community values they hold. I mean, may they have a chance to do this with other properties as well. So I'm just, not to mention the parking. Oh, bless their hearts. Never can a friend find a place to park when they've come to visit me. I probably shouldn't tell this. I have to take my car out of my driveway, drive around, park it in the library parking lot. I didn't say that, so that my guest can use my driveway. So please, I ask that, given all of these factors, I just hope it all works out best for them, because it will be the best for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That was actually a very good description. I appreciate that. John, you have to make a comment too?
Yeah, I feel kind of fortunate. It's rare that I get to actually attend a planning commission meeting.
John, forgive me for interrupting you. For the record, do you want to explain?
For the record, yeah, I'm John Reed at 36 Scenic, which is within the noticed area. And while I'm on the council, that's why I usually don't show up here, because I would have to, if any decision that you made were, the council is the appellate body, And so I need to avoid coming here, except in this case, I'm a neighbor. So I'm speaking to you not as a council member at all, but as a neighbor.
Can I interrupt you one more time? I apologize. So the bottom line is you have to recuse yourself at council no matter what happens.
Correct.
And that's why you're allowed to come
Correct.
talk
And
as an individual citizen.
So I'm an individual citizen that lives down the street. And I support this project. I think it's, I mean, I just as Drew had said, I've known a number of people that live there. I'm familiar with this building that I guess in '63 or whatever was a shed, and you know, before I moved to Fairfax in '91, it looked like, you know, it looked like the structure that it looks like now, and I've seen it used as various different things. I think it's commendable to legalize this unit or legalize this structure, and I have talked with the applicant in terms of trying to divine what happens here, because it's difficult to understand, you know, the process. Just to kind of clarify things, and I guess I first the fire department regulation for the, you know, as a council we had tried to encourage affordable units, especially in the walkable, close to downtown zone, in terms of encouraging second units to be both brought up to code and legalized, and as well as, you know, added to our housing stock, because it's affordable housing, being small and walkable. So we made that agreement with the fire department that, you know, we did not require sprinklering new second units. It's kind of a catch-22 situation, as that our planning director has described to you. And, you know, I can't speak to whether we can revisit that down the road or whatever, because it's kind of a council matter, but I just wanted to say that I support this. It kind of legalizes affordable housing next to our downtown, and I don't think it would be out of character with the neighborhood, and I think the parking solution is pretty good. Incidentally, that existing gate, which was referred to as a fence that crosses the driveway, has been there for decades, and it pretty much preserves the aesthetic the way it is, and I think it will be quite functional. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any more public comment on this project? Okay, so we would like to close the public comment portion of the hearing and get into a discussion among us up here and with staff. And I have some questions, if I may. Is the location of this fence a problem vis-a-vis the unit being used as an illegal second unit?
No, the fence is just a result of what I observed driving all over town, that when there are gates like that, it does deter people from getting out, opening them, and actually using the parking. So,
okay.
I mean, sure, if someone is determined to use the parking, they're going to get out and open the gate. But I drive all, you know, you walk all over town, you can see people that have put in similar gates. People do not get out and open them and drive their cars in and use the spaces. Some people do, a lot of people don't. So, yeah, people don't even park in their cars.
Okay, well, on that point, I might say that electrifying the gates makes a lot of difference. You can drive up to the gates, push a button, they open, you're all set, and it isn't generally that expensive, so I might recommend.
You could add that as a condition. That would probably ensure that someone would use the parking and that it wouldn't just block that space and the space be used as a yard.
I'm thinking that as a possible condition. And the other comment I had was there had been mention that this is affordable housing. Is this, quote, legally, can this be affordable housing? And
we've got nothing in place to ensure that things are affordable. The size often will make it affordable, you know, because it is going to be a small space.
we've had a long discussion in the housing element update process about affordability by going smaller with units. This is different in terms of being an ancillary piece of the original housing. But it's a accepted fact that during difficult times, people double up in their residences. Are you with me? So to the extent that you get more people into a house, you're spreading the cost among more people, and you're creating, someone renting a room in a house is a lot cheaper than, renting a house and sharing it between two. So I would argue that while you're not codifying an income cap or a rental rate, by going to smaller units or more versatile use among more people within one unit, you're adding to the housing stock. And there's an argument out there that some people don't buy, but just by adding units, you're increasing supply. And there is a demand and supply aspect to housing.
Okay, well, I see that as generally true, but, Fairfax is in need of being able to identify dedicated affordable houses. And I don't know if the applicant is interested in, making this so dedicated. And I believe staff has indicated to us that there's a feeling we don't want to allow a full bath and we don't want a kitchen because we do want to connect the house with the second unit and not make, so what we're doing, I think, needs to be a little clarified, is that we're not legalizing this unit as, quote, affordable housing if we pass this resolution. What we're doing is bringing the house up to physical legality so that it can be used in a more consistent manner for sleeping or whatever. I mean, it's almost like a pool house you might have in a house of Beverly Hills next to a pool. It's a similar kind of structure to that. So you have that issue. So I'm rather concerned about that use of the unit as an illegal second unit, and that's my concern.
If I may, I'd really like to explore this question. It's exactly what I'm interested in as well, because I feel that there's a tension between the concept of not allowing a full bath versus this question that I think came up when Norma was talking to the applicant's representative about the legality of renting a room in your home and the insistence that there be a connection to the living space in the main house as opposed to allowing a full bathroom in that room. It's not going to be considered affordable housing for the purposes of the requirements that the state imposes on the town. That's clear. And I also understand, Linda, your concern that if we allow this, here, then we're kind of opening up the door. And I guess I'm wondering, is that a problem? And I wanted to hear from you about what that problem poses, given, if I understand it correctly, it is legal to rent a room in your home to somebody. And what is I understand the Airbnb concern, and I actually think that's a realistic concern that we've got to talk about as well. But I really want to understand your concern. Is it really just about the sort of potential to create an Airbnb type thing, or is it because it would be different?
When I look at projects, I would say, why, if you really need more bedrooms, are you really physically unable to build a bedroom onto the house and live as a family in one house? I just have seen a lot of detached structures. Even if this family has no intention of using it as a separate unit, it's really attractive. This neighborhood is bad with respects to parking. The reason this came to our attention is because a neighbor filed a complaint because parking is so bad. It's so hard to find parking. And so the more space you provide for more adults, the more vehicles you're going to have. I know everyone hopes that someday we don't, all have cars, but the reality is people go through phases in their lives. You get older, you may not be able to physically walk around. So the fact that it's detached, the reality is you can just put a microwave in there. We've had people that have worked at town hall that actually washed their dishes in their bathroom sinks because of the cost of rents in Marin. So it's just, and it's just an opinion, but there are neighbors that obviously don't feel comfortable coming forward that complained about this in the first place and were concerned that it was going to be a separate unit and used that way.
But separate unit as opposed to extra bedroom, and under either scenario,
I think Norma hit the nail on the head. If they really need another bedroom, why don't they make one of the offices, which basically meets the building code definition of a bedroom, it has a closet. They have the potential to provide an additional bedroom inside the house. So.
And I think their reply related to the desirability, if you're going to rent a room out to somebody, that it would be a little bit separate from the. So you see that there's this tension between us saying, oh, it's got to be part of the house, and
it is your town, and you can do that. But just remember, you've got a lot of storage sheds out there in this neighborhood, and you have to make a good finding for why this is the people need this for a substantial use of their property, and that it's not a grant of special privilege, because the next person down the road is going to ask for the same thing, and you're going to have to be able to, maybe this is what the town wants, but I think that the code was worded such that accessory structures not be allowed for living space for a reason, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe times have changed, and this is the type of development Fairfax wants to see. I was unable to make the findings. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to make findings for it. But you have to be able to find that it's not a grant of special privilege and that it's not going to negatively impact the neighborhood.
So from my perspective, I guess, and I'll direct this to the other commissioners, I am of a couple different minds, maybe more than two. On the one hand, I kind of appreciate that regardless of the quotas that ABAG and the state impose on the town to have a minimum number of potential for affordable units to be developed, the reality of the cost of housing in Marin in general and in Fairfax, kind of pushes us more towards it'd be great if there were more rooms even available for people to rent in this town. So I guess I just was hoping to get everybody else's thoughts on this.
This is really tough. I don't know if you could hear this. I mean, I support this. I think it's impressive that the community has come forward to support this, but I think our job is to uphold and to interpret the code. And I'm a little bit confused now as to what the code says about a legal unit. If it looks like a horse, if it walks like a horse, it probably is a horse. And this to me right now looks like a horse. And so what would make it legal? What would make this a legal unit? The kitchen. Is that?
It would have a kitchen, it would have a bathing, the bathing facilities. The site would have 4 parking spaces on the property. What the code says is if you're going to have a second unit, all the parking for the main house and the parking for the unit are supposed to be provided on the private property, or you're supposed to get a variance from the Planning Commission. And because it's a detached building, I think I have this right, that the water district would require a separate meter.
For the kitchen, what are the requirements for a
Our
separate
definition
kitchen?
of kitchen, all you need is a sink outside a bathroom and a counter, and that's a kitchen.
Okay.
Can I say something? There's an elephant in the room. The applicant would like to build a second unit.
Yeah.
And it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
They're trying to get some economic vitality out of the house by making it possible to rent ideally a second unit, but in this case, because of the cost of creating the second unit, more livable space that they can share with someone else. So it's sort of making it more affordable for them to own the house, if you will,
Right.
in addition to whoever's sharing the house with them. But the elephant in the room is, we'd like a second unit, they'd like a second unit. It's onerously expensive.
And there are neighbors out there
Right.
that are not in favor of a unit on this property, but don't feel comfortable coming forward.
And by the way, the code is the code in terms of, okay, now they've come in for ancillary living space. That is the code. And the town and the neighbors are entitled to have this kind of discussion when and if it comes in as a second unit. So now it's fallen in this category of ancillary living space. So that's what we're faced with. We'd all like it to be a second, well, I think the policy of the town, given the housing element and the location of this property, the neighbors' reservations notwithstanding, is to move towards infill development of second units, and where appropriate, junior second units yet to be codified.
But the codes are not there yet. So we're not there yet. We will be there.
The findings are difficult.
The findings are difficult, and I mean, if you flip it the other way, okay, so it's legal to rent a room in your house. Is a room, by definition, standalone and separate from the house? Nobody,
No, that's why it requires
no.
the use permit. That's why it requires
Okay.
the use permit, because it's not attached to the house.
Okay, but so.
Unlike the definition of duplex.
Yeah, but a duplex, you have to have 7,000 square feet, and this does not have 7,000 square feet, so.
So a room can have a toilet and a sink, but it doesn't need a shower.
Well,
I mean, if
no,
we
no,
chose.
in this case, it's just in terms of
Yeah.
that there could be mission creep on the use of this
Yeah.
ancillary space away from auxiliary living area of the main unit versus its own satellite standalone unit.
If you have a full bath, all you need is a nuker, a microwave, and then you've got a separate unit.
Right. So by approving this, we're creating a precedent that there is no ordinance or code for.
Well, when the next person with a large house has a shed in the back and wants to turn it into a full bath and a bedroom, I'm not going to be able to say that it's out of character. I'm going to have to say, oh, sure, the Planning Commission voted one just down the street, so what basis do I have to say that it's not a grant of special privilege? And if that's the way, if that's what you want, I mean, if you want to provide affordable housing, that's definitely a way to go, because it does provide affordable housing. I handle hour upon hour upon hour of parking complaints, second unit complaints, people not liking that many people living close together. So I see both sides of it. I know there's a real shortage of affordable housing, but packing a lot of people into a small area does have problems that it creates as well. And that's why it's so hard. When I wrote this staff report, I went back and forth like 3 times before I settled on my recommendation. So,
and let me just say, we don't like to air our dirty laundry of differences we may have on staff. And Linda's right. She deals with the day-to-day current planning issues for 29 years now. I wear 2 hats. I deal with the current planning issues, but I deal with the long-range planning, the forward planning. So I'm responsible for implementing the new policy of the town, which is the housing element. So I find myself respectful of Linda because she's in the trenches on the day-to-day where the code is her Bible. And yet I want to guide the code towards the direction of the housing element, but we haven't gotten there yet.
I just want to say, I also see people spending a lot of money for their homes, and I often ask people, okay, this isn't your neighborhood, but if you had just spent a lot of money for your house, is this what you would want to see in your neighborhood? Because some people are going to say, yes, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with people living in accessory structures. Other people are going to say, I bought a home, and I've heard people say this at the counter, I bought a home in a single-family neighborhood. And that's where I wanted to buy a home, and that's what I want my neighborhood to stay. I don't want little areas popping up all over with people.
Having said that, the governor of California in 1976, who happens to be the governor now, created a carte blanche amendment to all single-family zoning in the state of California that said you're allowed a second unit in any single-family lot unless the local municipality disallows it. So in the macro policy issues, there's a catch-22 out there also.
Well, that was 19. That was.
Sandra Fell handled it in a really
You can see what's
interesting
fun we have
way.
writing these reports.
No, I
Sometimes.
think the issue, it seems to me, the big issue in the neighborhood is parking. That's the big deal. I think that this project, if it were to be rented, how many parking spaces are on the property now? 2? 1? Okay, so we're going to have 3. Problem is, if you had a second unit rented, it might take up the parking, we might end up with the same parking situation we have now, is my concern. So I'm frankly leaning towards approval based on the half-bath idea, and otherwise, we would have to continue this for further discussion and examination, I think.
Can I just point out an irony with regards to the parking? As Linda said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, it is, if this is approved as ancillary living space, it's appropriately parked with 3 cars. You get another person or 2 living in that room, it's allowed. If it's a second unit, it's got a deficit. The difference will be no difference in the impact to the neighborhood. So it is good that they're going from 1 space on site to 3. And even though the code doesn't allow that 4th parking space to be off site, in other neighborhoods where there might be space on the street, you might consider that. I mean, if this was coming in as a second unit. In this case, the neighborhood, we've heard even from a supporter, is pretty inundated with parking on the street.
Well, let me ask you, if there's a difference between, if we were going to restrict the half bath, is there a difference between restricting it in the resolution versus the deed restriction as far as the property use is concerned? I mean, the deed restriction could be removed, but the resolution may be not so easy. That would stick longer, the half bath, if it were part of the conditions rather than just saying it in the deed restriction.
Well, either way, in order to remove the deed restriction, they would have had to have come back before you to either turn it into a second unit or maybe make it a junior second unit. So you would be acting on a new resolution, and you could change the resolution and the deed restriction. So that's not difficult.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. If we move forward with this approval with the half bath, would there be anything to prevent them from switching one of the offices with the back separate bedroom? Like having that be an office? That would be fine, right? Okay.
I have a question for staff. One thing that's not clear to me, is this structure considered like a legal permitted structure as it stands now?
Yes, it's been, they provided evidence that there has been a shed there in that location before there were setback regulations.
Okay,
so
that's what all the assessor's records and all that, the attachments.
Right.
Okay, because that part wasn't
Was it
clear
clear?
to me if that was like part of this application was to
No,
legalize.
that's why they're not requesting a setback variance. If I wasn't,
Okay,
if I
okay.
wasn't able to find some kind of evidence that some kind of a structure, I don't know if this is the exact one that was originally there, but there was
Okay.
something there at a time when it was legal to have it in that location, then they would be applying for a setback variance as well to try to legalize that substandard setback.
But you think that perhaps it may have been remodeled over time and maybe some other improvements that weren't originally.
That's kind of my feeling, but I don't have any proof
Okay.
of that. And we try to err on this, in favor of the applicant, and when we can. So short of a neighbor coming up and saying, hey, they came in and rebuilt a brand new building there, I don't really have any proof that it has changed from the. I know that there was a garage there at some point, and there's no longer a garage. So it's possible that a garage was back where the storage shed is. I don't know.
Okay, but I mean, I understand, you know, the cost you know, when you do a, you know, building construction project, that's why I haven't been able to remodel my home, because, you know, it's costly, and things always cost more than you expect. So I see this kind of application kind of as like a two-step kind of a thing. I don't think we're at the point. I think it should come back in the future when we can maybe approve it, as we can revisit the second unit aspect when, you know, these issues such as the sewer and the water meter and all these additional costs can be dealt with, and, you know, maybe move forward with just having a limited. At first I was thinking I didn't want to approve it with a bathroom at all, so I think Linda's suggestion of a half bath is a good compromise.
Any other?
Well, I was going to say the only other thought that comes to mind is that, you know, whereas this applicant seems to be a decent couple, we don't know who's going to come down the road, and, you know, what we decide now will bear no control, you know, over what happens in the future, and that is a concern to me. And so I think I would be okay with the half bath and the electrified gate, but I think the bath has to go.
Okay, well, do we have possibly consensus, or is there any more concern? Frankly, let me just say, I was thinking of rejecting, you know, this application when I first saw it, because of the concern about this being used as an illegal second unit, and we don't want to increase the sort of not adhering to the code aspect at all. We want to adhere to the code. After hearing the neighbors, however, with their welcoming the idea, I think that kind of tells us if anybody was really opposed, they might be here tonight. So I lean towards now approval on the half bath idea. We still want to keep it, you know, and then they can revisit that later if they get some funding to turn it into a second unit. But my thing is, I wish we could have this registered, dedicated as a second unit affordable housing in the California affordable housing scheme of things. On the other hand, though, affordable housing needs to be kept, you know, within the transit corridor and within, if we can, keep it, you know, in one area, because density is an issue here as well. We hear that a lot. We hear that a heck of a lot. That people don't like increasing Fairfax's density. So I think that's the comment I have. Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say this has gotten a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Guess that's why it's such fun to be on the Planning Commission. I concur with what's been said, that I think Linda's suggestion was a good one to, after all this discussion, to probably go with the half bath for now, and understanding that this is kind of a two-step process, is what applicants are trying to get to. It's strange. We are, as I understand it, really not supposed to be assuming who's going to own a property in the future. We're supposed to be thinking about it on a different level than that. And yet these applicants, and actually, can I ask the question, how long have the applicants owned this property? How long have you been living there? Because I kind of thought I heard it was fairly recent that you... 1 year. Okay, so I'm going to take a guess that you're expecting to be here for a while. You're not planning to flip the property and leave or something like that. Okay, don't do that. After everybody says how nice you are, just stick around. We like you. But we're not supposed to be making a decision on that basis. But it tilts things in my mind, in terms of thinking that if these applicants who intend to be here for a while have a certain plan and everybody says that they're nice people, that I think, well, I guess maybe that might be the plan. And so on the reality on the ground, this might be a good thing. It might be a good outcome to this whole thing. I also have to comment that the neighbors who might have filed a complaint aren't here, and you kind of have to come in order to be part of the public process. We've had that issue in other aspects of our public process, so I'll just reiterate that. You have to show up when the decision's being made, not come and complain afterwards. It really is painful if that is the approach. So I'm going to have to go with the fact that all these people came and supported the applicants. So yes, if you had a comment, is that okay? I think so.
Yes, please just come forward and use the mic, which is already on.
Thank you. I'm Gwen Gordon. I'm one of the owners. And my concern about the half bath issue is that we were reported because there was a tenant living in that bedroom. We didn't know that it wasn't habitable. We were actually under the impression that it was, which was the basis for our being able to put a budget together that would afford the house. So we are counting on it, and we haven't had that for almost 9 months now. It's been an extreme strain. Part of what we discovered when we had a tenant there who was using the bathroom in the main house was that it was very inconvenient, and they did not like coming over, and that it would be very difficult to find somebody to live there if they had to come across the yard to use the bathroom, to use a shower. It was, the conclusion was that it wasn't really workable. So my sense is that if we only did have a half bath, we wouldn't find a good tenant. That's the problem I see.
Well, even though the public comment period is closed and we have heard from the applicant, I think that with the debate that's going on, we should hear some more from you, yes. But make it brief if you could.
Just a lot of thoughts around the whole thing, but I really feel like this is a precedent, and this is a very important decision that you guys are making. And just like Linda sees some things in the trenches, I'm also in the trenches. And by having such a project as this one, and kind of moving forward and taking that step, we're jumping off of a cliff here in Fairfax. If we don't move forward on some of these things, I get a call about legalizing something similar. I explain the process, and I explain that you're not going to get it. And so they go about doing it anyways. So I feel that we have to be very careful. We're encouraging other people, not my clients, to not do this. We're $10,000 in at least just to get to this point. So I feel that the bathroom is an extreme situation for this property. And to have somebody walk through the yard in the mud would be not so great. And there's no kitchen. There has to be a bit of trust, and that's all I'm here to say. Thank you.
Well, just a response to that, they could eliminate that problem by converting the exterior building to one of the offices. And that's just a matter of moving some furniture out there, and then rent the room in their house, and then that makes the bathroom. And it seems to me that you're improving that opening that wall will make a big difference to that idea too. We're not against having the unit. We're just concerned that if we make an exception to the code now, it's going to stick forever. Like you say, it's a possibly momentous decision, or jumping off a cliff. And if we put a deed restriction on and we ask for an electrically opening gate, That will conform everything a little bit more to the code idea. And, you know, there's nothing saying that in the near future we might be able to modify the zoning or the code to allow this unit to become, you know, easier and cheaper as a full legal second unit, which the applicants desire. So you're not changing the size of the unit, really. If it could fit a full bath now, it will be able to fit a full bath in the future. So we're not precluding that. What we're saying is this is the way we're doing it now because this is how the law is right now. And if maybe in the future the law changes, the applicant can always come back and see if we can do something about it.
Can I make a comment, or go ahead?
I'm sorry. So I just was struck with a thought. We are headed towards the junior second unit. That is part of the housing element. And the illegal unit that was in the house when that was cut off will lend itself towards being a junior second unit. Are you with me? By the outside space, the outside building not becoming a legitimate standalone unit, they still only have one house on the property. Ergo, when the code is amended to allow junior second units, they would be ripe for converting what had been the illegal interior second unit to a junior second unit. And if we're successful in getting the Ross Valley Sanitary District and the Marin Municipal Water District to waive fees, they wouldn't be faced with this catch-22 on why they're not here applying for an outside second unit. The junior second unit is actually a really good model for these folks to get out from under the onerous cost, which is the elephant in the room. They're not able to do what they really want to do by cost. So it's an interesting twist in looking at it that way. By granting them this middle path and letting the code on junior second units, which is the policy of the town and the housing element, catch up, they have an avenue to get to a legal second unit without the hookup costs. Ideally. And we haven't succeeded at that yet, but we're lobbying to do that.
Could I?
Go ahead.
It's on the town's bucket list. Let's put it that way.
You know, I guess I'd like to just take some issue with some of the things you said, Phil, because I feel like we are sort of not being consistent here. You know, on the one hand, we would say in order to be in a second unit, you have to have a kitchen, which is a sink outside the bathroom and a counter. And on the other hand, because of the concern that it's easily converted to a kitchen, we're saying, so we really don't like the idea of a full bathroom. And I think we're conflating these ideas. You said if it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's a duck. And I don't think that's appropriate when our ordinances that we're sort of standing by don't say that that full bathroom is in fact a second unit in the sense that it's going to need the fourth parking space and all that. So I kind of feel like, you know, we want to go at them either way here, which troubles me. You know, I think if the town doesn't want a bedroom with a full bathroom that's separate from the house, that the ordinance should say that, not that you can't have or that you need to get the permission for the affordable unit. So that's where I understand your concern that...
Well, but the code does say they don't want accessory structures to be living space. And that's why it comes to you for a use permit. And you have to be able to find that there's some special circumstance of the property that, and now that I've heard Norma point out that if they really needed another bedroom, they could have converted one of the offices to a bedroom.
But,
you know, the code says accessory structures can only be used for certain uses.
So they would need the use permit to use that accessory structure as an office as well, correct?
Right.
So here we go, okay? We're telling them whatever you do with that accessory structure, you need to get a use permit.
And you need to be able to make a finding that granting this home a use permit to use this as living space detached from the house is not a grant of special privilege. So you have to be willing to let other people do the same thing in the neighborhood. And that may not be a problem, except I see it as a problem because you have a lot of old homes with no on-site parking. There's a house next to Fairfax Lumber that already has 4 legal units in it and maybe 2 parking spaces. You've got a duplex across the street with no parking.
And we've got a disconnection between adding 10 bedrooms in your single-story structure or your one house and only needing 3 spots versus adding 1 affordable unit and now needing 4. So, I think that
you have other overlying ordinances, though, like your design. Certain things have to go through design review, and you have to be able to make the finding that the structure is in keeping with the character of the other home. So there's other sections of the code that actually limit how large a house can get, right? But yeah, you could make your code a lot clearer. You could. This code is a very confusing code, and that's one of the things on our list of things to do.
Can I get one question in there? Why can they not rent this bedroom number 3, which has a full bath, a closet, a shower, another closet, an office, and counters? Why can't they just open up the wall, because that's required, but why can't they just rent that? They could, right?
The inspection, they were, yeah.
It's rented.
Oh, it is rented.
Is there a closet in this accessory building at the moment? No, there isn't. Okay.
So it can be conditioned as a studio, and that would be a legal ancillary space.
Art studio? Or
Just, yes, or office. Yes, thinking studio, just because I work in a studio.
You mean with a
But
half
does it
bath?
work, with the half bath? I mean,
I think a better way to look at it so it doesn't confuse you is it's going to be living space. That's what you're asking for, a use permit to have it be living space. So whether it's used as an office or a bedroom, it's living space. Yeah. And I have to say, if you get a future owner that wants to break the law, they're going to put plumbing in it and a microwave, and it'll be a unit. So, it's, I don't know what to say. I just know that in other situations, when it's been limited to a half bath, you have a greater control over it. There's less likelihood of it turning into a second unit. It's more difficult. You have to put the bathing facilities in. But there's no guarantees, because if someone really wants to make a detached accessory, if someone really wants to make a unit in their house, I mean, the existing house could be, because of the location of the laundry room, it could be divided into 3 units right now just with some locking doors.
I mean, another concern is, we just heard the applicant say that it will be used as a separate standalone unit, which means that then the tenant would cook there. And that, to me, is, fire hazard if there is a kitchen. So, whether they would do that with a half bathroom, I don't know. I guess it reduces the chances, but I don't know.
Well, if you look at the plan overall, the location of the second unit here is far back on the lot. It was just pointed out, we were looking at it, that the fire department would have a difficult time getting back to that unit, so therefore they need the sprinklers. I think this unit, without being in the nature area, needs sprinklers because of the location of it. If a fire truck or hose may not get there very quickly. So that's, I'm willing to entertain a motion along these lines that, as Linda proposed, that we have the deed restriction for a half bath, and that we have some condition, I'm proposing 13, that if the gates are to remain in their current location, that they are made I'm not going to say electrical because these folks are on a real budget here, but at least made it easy to open and close so that it can be done. I would prefer seeing electrical remote operating gates, but I guess you're going to have to figure out how that can be done rather inexpensively. So if I were to propose a motion, it would be to continue the project, to talk about those gates. Otherwise, I would go with the half bath idea, and that's kind of, I'm sort of nudging everybody a little.
Just for clarification, the deed restrictions on using that as a standalone second unit.
Yes, that's right.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Our deed restriction language actually will be more detailed than that. It will say that the accessory structure shall only contain a half bath and shall not contain any appliances or improvements that can be considered a kitchen, that meet the definition of a kitchen in the Fairfax Town Code.
It's not just the half bath. It's
right. Yeah, the kitchen too. And I would go a step further and say there can't be any electrical that might support a microwave oven. I don't know if you can even do that, but no.
And again, nothing, if you were to go in this direction, nothing prohibits the applicant from coming back in and applying to make it a legitimate second unit. Or in the future, when we codify junior second units, coming in and applying to create an interior, standalone, separated second unit, junior second unit. Well, they can. It's just that we haven't codified the concept yet, but Nevada's, for example, stipulates that you have an interior door between the rest of the living space and the junior second unit that is lockable on either side. And the bathroom doesn't necessarily have to be a standalone bathroom for that bedroom that's the junior second unit. And that the electrical for the kitchenette is only limited to 110.
No, but what I'm saying is they could just rent it. They rent it now.
They are, yeah.
Right now, I would be in support of continuing the application so it could be modified so everyone is clear on what's being, what we're approving. Because I don't think it would be, if we stated all the different conditions and all that in order to approve it today, the modifications, I think it would just lead to confusion as to what, what the applicants, what actually got approved. So, because otherwise I don't think I could support it with just stipulating additional conditions at this point.
Okay. Well, I guess I thought I understood it fairly clearly, that it was essentially what Linda wrote up for us, which includes the half bath and includes the deed restriction. And then it's been discussed, I wanted to make a comment on it, on this discussion, but it's being discussed to add the requirement for looking at an electric gate. My comment is that I just want to remind us that that is it's a tandem parking space anyway, so it's not exactly convenient to zip in and out of anyway, but I'm not opposed to the electric gate for the reason that it would theoretically help to alleviate parking on the street by making sure that gets used. But am I wrong in ferreting out from this discussion that that's really what we were just, what you were just saying, that maybe we would want to move to approve is just what Linda wrote plus the gate? Is that right?
That's what I was saying, yeah. That's what I was saying.
You could leave it up.
We went around a long, circuitous path, but it...
Yeah, we got into the woods on the legalities of the second unit, standalone versus ancillary living space. And you could leave it to us to determine the electrified gate avenue. I mean, you don't have to design the gate.
Right, well, that's a good idea, I think. I mean, obviously the applicant has to go back and figure out cost. And so I think that should be a back and forth with the staff as well. So I would, I don't make the motion, so I'm not going to make a motion. My recommendation is we go with resolution 15-28 as written, basically.
And just an electric gate.
An electric gate, right, to be determined by staff.
I think they could have discretion on how they accommodate it,
Absolutely. There are hundreds of different mechanisms out there. So does anybody, I don't know if we have consensus to propose a motion.
It's time.
I mean, I'm not sold on the half bath. I was just not completely convinced that that's, a real appropriate condition. So I'm of two minds. I think Laura said, I'll let you talk first.
So let me ask you, if you don't agree with the half bath, what would you propose? A full bath or no bath?
I don't know.
So, Mr. Chair, may I suggest, this is, I've been there before as a planning commissioner. You need 4 votes to go in either direction with any of these details. It seems to me the sticking point is the half bath and the gate.
Right, and we don't seem to have consensus.
You might.
Do we have?
You don't need consensus. You just need 4 votes.
Okay, so I guess what we should do is maybe make a motion and then have a roll call vote on this to make sure we know how many votes we have. Okay.
Okay. What we are voting on is a habitable space as opposed to a legal ancillary. Okay. Ancillary space, right? Which could be like, I'm talking about like a working studio that has a restroom. That's considered a living space. Okay.
When you say studio, are you talking about a studio apartment or an art studio?
No, like an art studio or
a
So an office is a habitable. Okay.
Yes, it's considered habitable space.
Then I'm okay with that.
We need to make a motion to move on with this project. So can we have anybody want to propose a motion?
All right, I'll go for it. I think I know what the motion is. I'm just not sure where everybody sits with it, but we'll find that out soon enough. I would move that we approve this application with the conditions, the resolution as written, which includes, the resolution includes the restriction to a half bath, and it includes the need for a deed restriction. Those are already written into the resolution. And that I guess I'm going to go with what you were saying, that staff could discuss with the applicant, the electric gate. We don't have to put that in as a condition right now. That is actually something we can do?
No, you put the condition in, but the type of, what will meet that condition can be subject to staff review.
So what do we put in, an electric gate or just
electric?
It already is a gate.
Some kind of electric.
Electric gate.
Okay, so an electric gate, okay. And, all right.
So my language for that, if you want to entertain this language, is if gates are to remain in their current location, the gates shall be made, I'm saying, easy to operate, such as electrical remote control.
I think you'll then get into people arguing about what's easy to open. You can oil the hinges and then it can be easy to open. I think you need to have stronger language.
And I like the way you worded it, though, because it gives them the option. You said if the gates to remain in this location, it should be electrified for ease of opening. That gives them the option of moving the gate if they don't want to pay for the cost of electric.
I like that wording right there.
Okay, yeah,
for
I
all
like
those
that
reasons.
too. That's good. Let's go with that.
Okay, so that's the motion.
Okay, a second?
I second.
Just talking to the gate adding to this current resolution.
Yeah, there's this current resolution plus what Jim just said.
Okay, we have a second. Now we need to,
Second.
if we could take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Caroline? No. Commissioner Newton? No. Commissioner Ackerman? Yes. Chair Green? Yes. Commissioner Fragoso?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez-Parber? Yes. Vote pass.
Okay, so then we have a 10-day appeal period, a $500 fee to the town clerk, and
I just want to make sure that the applicants know that you can appeal a condition to the council. So if they're unhappy with the conditions, they can appeal, they can appeal that.
you heard that, right? You can appeal the conditions. Okay.
Can I take a 2-minute break?
Espejito compañero, mírame qué triste estoy. Se me fue el hombre que quiero y me muero por su amor. ¿Cuántas veces me ayudaste a vestirme para él? ¿Cuántas veces te empañaste al llorar por su querer? Pero hoy ya lo ves, solo siento tristeza y dolor, pues me muero desde que se fue y no puedo vivir sin su amor. Dime tú que eres fiel, si algún día me vendrá a consolar, pues me mata esta pena tan cruel y no puedo estar sin su mirar. Espejito compañero, mírame qué triste estoy. Se me fue el hombre que quiero y me muero por su amor. ¿Cuántas veces me ayudaste a vestirme para él? ¿Cuántas veces te empañaste al llorar por su querer? Pero hoy ya lo ves, solo siento tristeza y dolor.
If anybody wants to stay, they're welcome. So we have now taken care of the items, and we're moving on to basic approval of minutes, and we have two sets of minutes tonight to approve, June 18th and July 16th. And those are items 6A and 6B.
On the June minutes, just minor corrections, page 4, and I can give this to you in writing here. I could just give you my copy, but Principal Planner Neal, it's written plainer. I'm sure she's good with a plain too, but page 7, it says in about almost the middle of the page, it says, which included the provision of bicycle racks. So there's just 3 words that got duplicated in that sentence. And I believe that is it for me for the June minutes. Might have had something with the July as well.
Any other comments on the June minutes?
I had no comments on the July minutes.
Okay, July minutes?
I have some comments. So we're missing a T in Newton, a couple places. Can't have that. And then in the end, item 7 on the solar energy permitting ordinance. And I I can give you these as well, but it says Commissioner Newton and said the scope of the ordinance is broad and she would recommend removal of the language pertaining to public health and safety. I would just add with respect to larger solar arrays to the end of that. And that's it.
Can we move approval of both of them at the same time?
So do we have a motion for approval of
Let's take June.
June?
Who wasn't here? Absent, Laura was absent. Everybody else was here. Shelley was here. I move approval of the June 18 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All those
Okay,
in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
I recused since I was absent.
Yes.
And I want to thank our secretary for producing such incredibly good minutes.
They are good.
Consistently over the time.
You really
Okay.
capture
Do we
the
hear
essence.
a motion for the July 16th?
I so move.
A second?
I was not here. Go ahead. I second.
Okay, and we do have a quorum of those who were there, so they can, do we have a vote?
Aye. That was cool.
And one abstention.
It'll just be noted that me, Ms. Gonzalez-Barber, and Shelley is not here either. So now we move on to what we call discussion items. We want to review the list of top items. I think we've identified one certainly tonight that ought to be moved close to the very top of that list.
I think it is the top.
So I just wanted to circle back with you because remember we spent some time, I think it was in June, going through the whole wish list and narrowing it down to these priority items. And I just wanted to show you, off of my notes that night, I composed this 6 primary objectives for the year, and they went to council at the budget workshop, and so I just wanted to circle back. And first and foremost is the second unit, updating the second unit and amnesty ordinance. Second is creating reviewing the development standards on how we count floors in the residential zone, going beyond the Cal Green and the new building code with our own green building ordinance and point system. And fourth, parking requirements in residential zone. Gosh, we got into that tonight again. And the tree ordinance, how it's sort of redundant for you all to pass on a plan or approve a plan and then have the applicant go to the tree committee to get approval on removal of the trees. We feel that's redundant, and also a catch-22 should the tree committee ever decide not to remove a tree that's right where the house has been permitted to go. And then finally, eliminating the APN references in the zoning ordinance tables, which is very antiquated and impossible to keep up with because APNs change by the county without our keeping track of them. And also we have in our existing tables APNs listed in 2 different zones. So
What is the planning commission's role in that item 6?
in which one?
In item 6, the elimination of the
When
APN
we do the ordinance updates for each section of Chapter 17, any modifications to the code, Chapter 17, go through you first as a matter of how the town is set up, of how the town code is set up.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, you would do a great amount of work actually editing them to remove the APN tables. Fairly
Right.
straightforward but detailed work.
It's when also
then you would come to us and we would approve it, and then the council would approve it. Is that-
Yes.
Yeah. And none of that would be controversial We don't expect there to be a controversy about removing the APN tables.
Well, we have good arguments why it needs to be done. I think once you get into the woods on why it needs to be done, it's pretty obvious.
Right. So I'm just wondering why that isn't higher in the list. If it seems only a matter of if you, who are going to do most of the work, the staff collectively who are going to do most of the work, if you want to get started on it, I see no reason why you wouldn't get started on it, and when you're ready, bring it through, and it should be fairly straightforward, I would think. It's just a minor point.
Yeah, we'll have an opportunity actually when we address the Plan Development District and the CH to CC in those two areas of Chapter 17. We will be addressing those in the near future. So we'll start with those, and then we'll circle back in each section of the code to eliminate the table.
You'll just be doing this as we do any
Right.
amendment to, as
Right.
it's going to go through the process anyway. You'll
Right.
I understand.
Right.
Okay.
So I just wanted to let you see what went to council and that they bought off on, that these are, priorities for the coming year. We're already in, actually. So the fiscal year, which runs July 1st to July 1st.
Let me say for the record also, these are the top 6. There were about 53 or 60.
There's a lot of, and some duplicate.
So these really are up at the top. And the elimination of APN tables is the elimination of error. And error is what caused a lot of controversy before. So that will streamline us and prevent these errors. We don't want to be making any errors at all.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay. Shall we move on? The hour's late, and Linda always reminds me at this hour she's worked over 12 hours. So, okay, so I go on to my report?
Hey, it's time and a half.
Okay. Next week is a special council meeting in this room on Wednesday night on ethics training. We actually, because the Streamlining Solar Act did not have a successful first reading, we put that on the agenda for Wednesday, and we'll be blowing through that hopefully in short order for the first reading, and then there'll be the ethics training. And I believe you should have all received an invitation, I believe, from the town manager to attend the ethics training. It's on this, yes. And it's, you're all required to go through this every 2 years. I'm actually going to be there myself because my...
Which is faster, this one or the computer? No, because the computer makes you can't just say yeah.
Right.
You have to spend a certain
Right.
amount of time.
Right. So this will be a 2-hour session, and you'll get your certificate by the town attorney afterwards. You have the option to not do it next Wednesday and do it online. And you're right. It makes you have to go through the process online.
If we do it here, we get to ask questions.
You're done with it.
Well, we get to ask questions. If we
Right,
actually
that's right.
have a question,
That's
we
right.
have a live, breathing person
Yeah.
Do we have
to
to
ask.
sign up, or can we just show up for the next Wednesday ethics?
You show up, but you need to be here for the whole 2 hours if you're going to get credit.
Michelle asked that we let her know if we're coming.
Do attorneys get CLE?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle sent that in the email. Yes.
Okay, next, I'd like to let you know that we received our conditional conditional letter of compliance from the State Department of Housing and Community Development on the housing element. And as expected, it said, to stay compliant, you have to amend the zoning ordinance for the planned development district by January 31st of next year. And it also caught something in our emergency homeless shelter ordinance. There was a line in there that said that the planning director shall approve a management plan, and they didn't like the fact that it was sort of a closed-end caveat, because there's not supposed to be anything that technically will stand in the way of emergency shelters coming in, so they want us to wordsmith that clause in there so that it's a prescriptive hurdle they have to meet with the management plan rather than a discretionary review on my part that could say no shelter. So they didn't slow us down on getting the letter. That was good news. They just said you needed to go back and clean up that one little piece of the emergency homeless ordinance. And the rest of the letter addressed the rezoning that we're required to do. So that was a major accomplishment. And I might remind you that in the last 6.5 years, this is the second certified housing element we've succeeded in getting through the state, with the caveats that we needed to do rezoning. We actually did the rezoning last time, and then it got rescinded, and we got an extension to January 31st because we updated our housing element, and that gave us an extra year. The dates, and if you noticed on the minutes, I was talking back in June about hopefully having the third and final affordable housing element forum on the CH2CC this month. That didn't happen. We're targeting the end of September for the CH2CC, and that's just going to be a good, lively discussion. And I don't have the actual date nailed down, but we're targeting the last week of September. So I hope to nail that down by the end of next week, and I'll try to give you all at least an email on that.
Would that be a weekday, not a weekend?
Yes, it would be a weekday evening. At this point, that's where we're headed.
That's good, because I've got weekend stuff now.
Okay. And the same thing slid with the traffic forum. Instead of September, it's sliding till October. And again, the last week of October, we're targeting. And there was, I think they did do whatever you call that online poll with the town council, so at least we've sort of figured them out. And I may circle back with you all to sort of find out your availability also. Okay, so one thing that happened when we were talking about the streamlined solar ordinance at our last meeting that I have to do a better job on. It was reflected in the minutes that I was going to take Mimi's concerns about the language on the larger units forward to council and discuss the concern about the restrictive language in the larger systems. But I failed to ask you all. It was sort of a loose conversation towards the end, and it's important for me, as Linda often does a better job of it, to circle back when one of you has a concern. I need to make sure that all of you are on board, you know, that it's a consensus of the Planning Commission that I take it forward. And then the reason that that's so important is that you may want to delegate somebody to go to the council meeting to discuss your feelings as a body. In this case, Mimi came to the town council meeting and made the case about why that language was restrictive, but I wasn't in a position to say, to add into Mimi speaking, that she's speaking on behalf of the council, or the commission, or whether she's speaking solely on behalf of herself. So there's nothing that went wrong. It's just that I need to be able to say with clarity, and a commissioner speaking before the council needs to be able to speak with clarity, whether they're speaking as a representative of the Planning Commission or they're speaking as an individual resident of the town that has concerns that they voiced at the commission, and they're here to reiterate those concerns they voiced at the commission.
Do we not only speak on behalf of the Planning Commission if we are instructed to go and do so by this commission?
You say that again, I'm sorry.
I assumed that I only spoke at a council meeting on behalf of the Planning Commission if I was instructed to do so. Otherwise, I'm just there on my own.
Right. I'm just saying it's important when you are coming before the council to be able to say whether you're there as an individual or you're there representing the wishes of the commission to be that are concerned, that is, as a group, you may even have to sometimes vote on this as a group, whether you would prefer that language to be redacted or broadened, okay? So it's fine, it's just that it wasn't clear. It's just housekeeping.
So I think what you're saying is when one of us is instructed to go and talk to the town council, it's because you're taking a
collective
total consensus opinion to the town council. Okay, that's the
right.
big deal.
Well, it also sounds like what you want to know is if one of us raises an issue with something that you're taking to the council, regardless of whether anybody from this commission is going to go to the council meeting, you want to get a sense
Yes.
of how the
Yes.
other commissioners feel
Yes,
about it.
yes, yes. Yeah. And by the way, this is something we might even want to talk about next Wednesday night in terms of how we, operate as individuals. Like John tonight, this is unusual, and, we might want to talk about that because it's not, you're not violating anything. It's just that there's these gray areas. It's So, and then lastly, and forgive me, I just hate being a broken record about the mics and the PA system in this room, but I have really bad hearing. And when I go to the restroom in the back of the room, walk through the back of the room, and you all are, it's really difficult to hear in the back of the room with this PA system. It's really hard. And then forgive me, but it's just, it looks so uncomfortable when people are going like this. And I know the system's lame. I know, and you do a good job.
These
Norma, your voice,
big, huge plans are really hard to work with when you got it.
I know. And by the way, this is not an unusual problem. And we get it both ways. We get people that get when they get the small plans, they can't read them, and they say, I can't read the plans. So we're sort of in a lose-lose situation here with not being able to make everybody happy. And that's just, in the perfect world, they're on the wall. You can point to them, you can see them, and in other setups.
Look, check this out. Now your mic won't work.
Yes, it does. You can't have over 5 anyway. But these things come off. So let me just say something to you. There's something I learned about these mics. First of all, if I pull it too hard, this is going to come off. But sometimes you can put it off to the side, so you've got, you know what I mean, your stuff's still in front of you, but the thing's off to the side. But I just want to reiterate, I hate being the one to say, speak up, but you need to take on the responsibility as commissioners to make sure that your voice gets in the ear of the person in the back. And I would encourage you to say, can you hear me? Ask people, can you hear me? Okay? And then the other thing is, it happens with staff too, where there's a discussion going on, and then we break off into a side discussion. It happened tonight. And while it's wonderful that energy's happening and the juices are flowing, but the problem is when you break off into a caucus, you're not hearing the discussion. So it'd be better just to stop if you're going to have a sidebar caucus, which really is not the way you should be doing things. But you need to avail yourself to everybody's comment. And like when the gentleman, the architect walked up with the plan and then it got into everything needs to be on the record. And boy, we rely on this big time. When we go back and we review things or there's an appeal, this process or capturing these meetings is so valuable. But here again, that's why I don't even worry too much about the minutes these days. We have the actual record, but you have to be on the record. So, in a perfect world, we'd have lots of money. We'd have a really jazzed up PA system. We're just sort of limping along here. And it's frustrating, I know, but it's really, really, really important to understand how hard it is for people in the back of this room, even with new speakers, to hear things. And with that, that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now we go to commissioner comments and requests. So
I'll be very quick. I just want to reiterate that we should take advantage of the opportunity to have the speaker on the junior second units come and talk with us.
She is coming.
It's in a minute. She is.
She's going to come in September.
Oh, great. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is Rachel Guinness, who actually pioneered a junior second unit in her own house with a single child so she could afford to stay in the house. And she's championing this thing now with Bob Brown and Novato. And as I mentioned in the last report, I put her in touch with Allison Joe at the Strategic Growth Council. Allison actually got back to her last week and put her in touch with a point person in HCD. And we're trying to arrange a lunch with the point person at HCD. And this is to foster statewide legislation that would prohibit utilities for charging hookups on junior second units.
Who is your point person at HCD?
Jennifer, and I can't remember the last name.
I have a question. Just to clarify to one of the comments, Bruce, that you made earlier about, you know, if people oppose a project, they need to come down. They could also have written to us, right? And that would have gone in the staff report. You don't need to come down. I just want to clarify. Okay, thanks.
But do something other than just have it be kind of a, I mean, it's just, yeah, they could write to us.
Okay, I guess we're all
Is that it? Oh,
we're all kind of exhausted. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
We're all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Good work.